Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. I just got my Christmas card from John. Oh, it's super cute. Honey, you got to come get this. You got to see this. This is awesome. All right, so obviously you can see the thumbnail. It's kind of funny because just not that long ago, we were talking about how Congress was loading up all of this garbage inside the NDAA, and wouldn't you know it, somebody snuck in a provision that I think is going to make a big difference. It's also possibly not the only thing that's hidden away in there. I mean, this thing is huge, so we got to find it. I also want to say Merry Christmas to everybody. My good buddy Duke Nukem USA says, you inspired me to re-record and extend the Ice parody song. I want to show people real singing. Thank you, and the chat would love it. Mean a lot if you play it. I will play it, my friend. Thank you very much. All right, now we're going to go ahead and listen to this. You guys can follow him over there on X if you want to. I'll pass the link out in the chat. We've got a lot to discuss today, and, I'm not really largely going to be talking about the TPUSA drama from this weekend, but I do want to touch on it just a little bit. I commented on it this morning when I was on Daily with CanCon, and I want to be very clear about why I was upset about what was said over the weekend. So what I need from you is to hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to get into it right about now. All right. Thank you very much. First of all, big thank you to Duke Nukem USA. Appreciate you, homie. Also, thank you very much to Esther G13, who dropped a fleet for us over there on Pilled. She says, Merry Christmas, Zach and Lisa. Much love and gratitude to you both. I really do appreciate it. Gracie Moon, you will be welcome to come back here later. The show is going to be exactly the same. The only difference is, obviously, you're not going to get to hang out in the chat with everybody. But let me explain to you what I mean by the drama. So Ben Shapiro spoke on the first day of this 3-day TPUSA event. I believe it was like Friday. And his speech was all about how we need to cancel Tucker and we need to cancel Tucker Carlson and Candace. Cancel both of them. And largely, it was kind of crazy. I mean, it was like this return to the identity politics of the left from a couple of years ago that I thought we had all tried to, overcome and get past. I mean, remember they were canceling people left and right. Well, now Ben Shapiro doesn't like what these people are saying, and so he wants them canceled. He doesn't want them to be part of the right. And I thought it was a really interesting choice for TPUSA to open with Ben Shapiro and do that. And then the rest of the weekend was everybody basically telling Ben Shapiro to go, stick it up his ass, for lack of a better term. And I thought that was even cooler, to be honest with you. I mean, Ben Shapiro doesn't have to like what people say, and the people who came after Ben Shapiro don't have to care what he says either. I don't particularly, need to get into it. But there was a lot more than just that. But there was one aspect of Ben Shapiro's interaction which sparked another statement that was made later in the weekend. And I want to talk about this. Now, if you guys have seen the episodes that I did with John on Baseless Conspiracies about the USS Liberty attack, then you already know the story of the USS Liberty. If you didn't see those, I forgive you. But the USS Liberty was an attack on a U.S. spy ship that was off the coast of Egypt during the midst of the 6-Day War. It was clearly identifiable as an American ship. It did not have any source of protection. The USS Liberty was normally accompanied by, big battle carriers, and those larger ships would provide protection for it. This was just a spy ship. I mean, it would just listen. It was operated by the NSA, and the only thing that they had on this boat to protect themselves was a .50 caliber machine gun. Totally useless if they're in the midst of a war. Now, the U.S. had no reason to think that the USS Liberty was going to get involved in the war, because we were not involved in the 6-Day War. We were an ally of Israel, and we had actually provided Israel with weapons, which then they used in the Six-Day War. And that's the reason the USS Liberty was there, because they were monitoring Israeli traffic to see if they were keeping with the conditions that we requested when we gave them these weapons. Spoiler alert, they didn't. And what happened next was history. We'll go into that in a moment. But essentially, Israeli forces, a number of different types, attacked the USS Liberty. Didn't matter that we had a huge U.S. flag flying on it. It was clearly identifiable as an American ship. You could also see that it didn't have any weapons. And first of all, Israeli planes flew over. They attacked it. They were not marked. The sailors on board had no reason to think they would be attacked because, of course, Israel was an ally of ours, and we were not involved with other aspects of the war. It clearly wasn't Egypt because they didn't have these particular types of modes of transportation. And then after the flyover attacks, that was like 3:05 p.m. early in the afternoon. About 20 minutes after that ended, there were torpedo boats that came in and then also attacked. There was this like onslaught of attacks that came to kill everybody on the ship. And it later came out that Lyndon Johnson was aware of it. It also came out that Israel knew that this was an American ship. And for years, the government of Israel, the government of the United States, they gaslit the survivors of the USS Liberty. And the men who survived, they simply wanted to have the truth be admitted. The Israeli government did admit fault, but they said it was an accident. They paid $13 million to the survivors. I'm not sure that they paid money to the family members of the ones who were killed. I just know that there was like a $13 million settlement. And it's just kind of been this point of contention, because anytime somebody brings it up, there is a lot of anger around it. Certainly for Americans who, lost brothers or family members. But also, like, Israel and Israeli citizens seem to bristle at the mention of it because they can't believe that the Israeli government would do this on purpose. And they also can't believe that anybody would bring it up unless they just hate Israel. But that's, obviously not the case. It's just about, truth and reporting what actually happened. Sherwood, happy birthday. So let's go. Now that I've gone through that entire explanation, this was a question that was asked of Ben Shapiro on Friday after he had said, we need to excommunicate all these people from the conservative movement.
During your speech, truth as the most important tenet.
Wow, this is really quiet. Let me turn this up. Okay. Begin at the begin.
Cited during your speech truth as the most important tenet of American conservatism. Why, therefore, did you call irrelevant the Israeli attack in 1967 on the USS Liberty, which left dozens of American servicemen dead and hundreds wounded?
His face when people start cheering, he looks like he is, really, really annoyed that he's being asked this question.
So what I actually said is that if we're looking at modern Israeli-American relations, looking at an attack that happened mistakenly by multiple Navy reports, multiple Israeli reports, and all available evidence.
Well, and he's not being genuine, okay? It's a disingenuous answer. He essentially says, oh, it's not irrelevant. It's irrelevant in terms of today's relations. It's not irrelevant in terms of today's relations, however, because the reason that Israel attacked the USS Liberty is because they wanted to trick the world into believing that it was Egypt that had attacked the USS Liberty. They intended to kill everybody on board so that the United States would have a reason to get involved in the Six-Day War. They could help take out Egypt. Lyndon Johnson was aware that this attack was taking place. It was kind of his I mean, it was the moment at which, if this had been successful, we would have gone to fight with Israel against Egypt and the Golan Heights. It would have been a whole thing. Now, the fact that people survived, it really threw a big monkey wrench in the whole thing. And the reason I say it's relevant today is because what have we witnessed just this year? A bald-faced attempt on, I would assume many people here in the audience can see it. The attempt of Israel to draw the United States into another war in that region against Iran. And a lot of people were very concerned that this is exactly what Donald Trump was going to do. And he didn't. He didn't do it. In fact, I think he outsmarted everybody in the region. So after this comment was made, we have this statement, which is made by Pastor Douglas Wilson. Now, I don't know Douglas Wilson. I guess he's long been associated with TPUSA. And, I had some pretty strong words for Mr. Wilson earlier today because of what he says in this statement here. He essentially suggests, he insinuates without saying directly that perhaps the men on the USS Liberty deserved to be bombed, deserved to be napalmed, deserved to have their lifeboats destroyed by Israel. And my upset nature is due in large part to the totality of evidence surrounding what happened, not simply the whitewash gaslighting that was done by both the Israeli government and the U.S. government to cover this up. I'm talking about comments from testimony from the survivors. I'm talking about since released classified reports about what actually happened that day. And, Mr. Wilson might be a great man, but the evidence that exists shows full well that nobody on that ship deserved to be murdered by the Israeli military. Listen to what he says.
Last thing, and you may consider this a little bonus. I mention it only because I believe it was brought up at this conference earlier.
Gosh darn it. Hang on. I need to refresh this. All right. Now somebody in the chat earlier had said, Douglas is only asking questions. Okay, so asking questions would be like, what really happened to the USS Liberty? Not saying maybe the USS Liberty deserved to be bombed. That's totally different. Take a listen.
Last thing, and you may consider this a little bonus.
Oh.
I mention it only because I believe it was brought up at this conference earlier. This bonus topic is the USS Liberty, attacked by Israeli planes in 1967, killing 34 Americans. I'm making no assertions here. All I am doing is noticing. All I'm doing is asking questions,
Noticing something that is not true, okay? Asking a question about something that you could go look up and you could find the truth for.
Like Candace does, recklessly connecting dots. The Liberty was an intelligence-gathering ship, and LBJ was president.
The Liberty was an NSA intelligence-gathering ship, and again, I repeat, it was there to monitor the actions of Israelis because they were using American weapons that we had provided to them, that they promised they were not going to use against Egypt.
Israel was in the middle of a hot 1967 war. How confident are you personally that there was no American deep state in 67? How confident are you?
Of course, there was an American deep state in 67, and that would have included Lyndon Johnson, and they would have been responsible for allowing this attack on Americans to happen.
That we weren't playing both sides and feeding intel to Egypt.
And that right there, feeding intel to Egypt, that is patently ridiculous. There's absolutely no way. There is nothing to indicate that that is even a remote possibility. The United States was not in any fashion feeding information to Egypt. Egypt was not our ally in the way that Israel was at this time. Now, the United States didn't want Israel and Egypt to go to war. Oh, okay, hold on. We're going to finish this and then I'll go to Trump.
How confident are you that America can only be double-crossed and can never be the double-crosser? Your confidence in the essential goodness of the CIA is endearing.
Nobody thinks that the CIA is good. And nothing that I have said is explicitly from the CIA. Okay, let's go to President Trump. Okay.
U.S. military carried out.
Okay, here is President Trump's full address. No, this is a different address. Hold on. It was from June. Here it is.
Half of these, but we're starting with the first two.
Bill jargon. It wasn't a
or 10% economic.
Push America.
More though, you got fight in the strong and coming across the
Wisconsin, Alabama, and others, but they were similar in size. Some a little bit bigger than the others, but if you take the biggest one, it's 100 times more powerful. They're longer by a little bit, but they're bigger. They're bigger ships, but they hold much more. They use the word lethality. Battleships are the largest, sturdiest, and most heavily armed vessel built specifically for naval combat. While America has built many new warships over the years, they've tended to be smaller, much smaller.
This isn't the beginning, babe? Okay. Well, I don't know. This says that it's live. And I went basically to the point at which Trump began, right here. There's no audio here. Well, RSBN screwed the pooch on the audio.
That these ships will be
okay.
The first of it.
His announcement is that we are building two new classes of ship, two Trump classes of ship. Maybe one Trump class of ship, the USS Defiant. Okay. So I don't think that this announcement, it's not like he's announcing that we're going to war or something like that, which is what a lot of people were assuming. All right. So we're going to go back to this.
Last thing.
All right. So he says, how you trust the CIA, basically. No, nobody trusts the CIA. Certainly, we're not getting information exclusively from the CIA. Now, just to show you how much the powers that be would be willing to gaslight to keep people quiet about what happened on the USS Liberty. This is a survivor from the USS Liberty. He and his wife go to a bar, random bar in San Diego. They don't tell anybody that they're going there. And he is approached by a Mossad agent. I'm going to have to refresh.
Kelly, a friend of mine, he became a good friend. I'm in San Diego. My wife and I are at the bar getting a drink, waiting for a table. This guy comes up next to me. He says, "Oh, you run the USS Liberty." I says, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" He says, "I know." And he had a watch, big, like a camera watch. He had it right in my face. I said, "Hey, but get that thing out of my face, you know." And you just tell me the best thing to do about the Liberties, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. I said, "Who are you, Mossad?" He says, "Yeah." So yeah, that's intimidation as far as I see it. Was he really Mossad, or was he really wasn't? It didn't matter to me. I got the message.
So what are the chances that that probably was a Mossad agent and that they were attempting to take this man and put the fear of God in him because he was out there talking about what really happened on the USS Liberty? So it was stated from Ben Shapiro and others that all of the reports by the U.S. government and by Israel show that this was an accident. And ever since then, one of the common attempts, the common tropes that have been used to silence people about this is to say that by talking about the USS Liberty, you are committing an act of anti-Semitism. Now, here in the United States at a USS public library, it was named the USS Liberty Memorial Public Library. And the Jewish community at large, or a portion of the Jewish community at least, was upset that it's the ADL and the Milwaukee Jewish Council, to be specific. They were upset that this library in Wisconsin was named the USS Liberty Memorial because they said that it was anti-Semitic. You can't honor those dead American soldiers because to do so is to commit an act of anti-Semitism. I wholeheartedly reject that. I think we have to be honest about what happened there. Now, so what actually happened? Now, I said the ship was obviously American. It was alone. It had no protection. It had no ability to defend itself. It had an American flag flying on the bow until, of course, that was napalmed and then everything was blown out. The attacks that occurred over and over and over again were specifically designed to destroy that ship, take it out, and stop the men on board from being able to get to safety. Not only did Israel block the radio transmissions of the USS Liberty to stop them from being able to radio for help, they intercepted those radio communications, and they heard the Americans on the ship saying, "We are Americans. What are you doing?" They waved at the jets when they went over the first time because they said, "Oh, okay, those are friendlies." So as the jets flew over the USS Liberty, one of the Israeli pilots radios back to the IDF war room, and he says, "This is an American ship. Do you still want us to attack?" Because the IDF, and they know the very general who ordered the attack, the IDF ordered these jets to attack this ship. And the IDF war room responds to the Israeli pilot and says, "Yes, follow orders." And the Israeli pilot, he's like, "I do not want to kill Americans." He replies and says, "But sir, it's an American ship. I can see the flag." And the IDF war room responds and says, "Never mind, hit it." And then once they hit it, they had to kill everyone on there because if they left anybody alive, then those men would be able to come forward and talk about what really happened. And that's why they tried to shut down that guy, come up and say, "Hey, I'm Assad, got a camera right in your face, and I want you to stop talking about this." Okay. So now today, people are like, don't talk about it. Or, if I'm just asking questions, and so now I'm going to denigrate those Americans and suggest that maybe they were spying for Egypt when everybody knows they weren't spying for Egypt. Now, Israel is not the only nation in the world that tries to drag the United States of America into its wars. Right now, we're seeing the exact same thing happening in the EU. NATO is trying to drag us into a war with Russia. And Tulsi Gabbard actually spoke about this during her time on stage this weekend. So we're going to hear from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence as well.
But what I've seen over these months is that every time they make progress and they move closer and closer to that hope for peace, the warmongers in the deep state step up and try to do everything they can to stop them. Predictably, they use the same old tactics that they've always used. The deep state within the intelligence community weaponizes intelligence to try to undermine progress. They leak it to their friends in the mainstream propaganda media to try to spread this and push a false narrative. They foment fear and hysteria.
No, Norlad V, we have stopped paying most of NATO's bills, and we are also not going to be running NATO in the new year. NATO is going to have to run itself.
As a way to justify the continuing of the war and their efforts to undermine President Trump's efforts towards peace.
And let me also say this, the more they attempt to interfere with our efforts to bring peace to Europe between Russia and Ukraine, the less and less we want to do with them. Not just us in the chat, but the administration.
And do so specifically in this case in order to try to pull the U.S. military into a direct conflict with Russia, which is ultimately what the EU and NATO want. We cannot allow this to happen. We have to see clearly what's happening before our very eyes and stand united in this cause of peace.
Tulsi Gabbard's a boss. I love this girl. I think she's doing a phenomenal job as Director of National Intelligence. Now, You know, she mentions the EU. I just talked about Israel. We talked about, you know, the war with Iran earlier. The deep state is not necessarily a nation state. There are factions within governments and within institutions all around the world. And I would say that largely a good portion of those people don't care about borders, which is one of the reasons they want to destroy borders. All they care about is power. All they care about is the destruction of sovereignty. They care about destroying the only successful constitutional republic still on earth, or the longest running successful constitutional republic on earth. And that's one of the reasons they want to draw us into a war. War is profitable. When you have war, you can not only make fantastic amounts of money, but you can also traffic women and children. You can traffic drugs. You can traffic guns. And it gives you an opportunity to strip back freedom and liberty. And this is the final clip from TPUSA that I'm going to play, also from Tulsi Gabbard, where she specifically talks about what is the cost of allowing ourselves to trade liberty for security. Because that's the argument that they give us. Well, you have to attack Russia, or you have to attack Iran, or you have to attack this other nation. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's all in service of the same group of people, and it's all a disservice to us here in America, to our liberty, to our freedom, and to our sovereignty.
Too often, we, the American people, are told we must choose between liberty or security. And which side often wins out in that proposition? Liberty loses. And the warmongers claim that they are doing what they are doing for the sake of our security. It's a lie.
Amen.
Too often,
it's not for our security. It's for their power. It's for them to enrich themselves. And it's so they can continue to perpetuate the transnational criminal organization, which is comprised of the deep state. Different heads of state, different politicians, different bureaucrats wearing the cloak of a nation, when that nation is merely, it's just a coat they're wearing for that day. They could throw on a different coat tomorrow just as easily. That's why they don't care about dual citizenship. That's why they don't really care about loyalty to one nation, because as far as they're concerned, nations mean absolutely nothing. And the people of those nations are merely chattel. Okay, they are food for the grist mill. And that is the exact opposite of what we believe. We believe wholeheartedly in liberty, in sovereignty, in freedom, in our own self-determination to continue on with what our forefathers had so graciously created for us hundreds of years ago. Even though it's difficult, even though sometimes it might appear as if it's a fruitless endeavor, this is the best path that we have forward. And right now, we have the best possible opportunity to get there with the people that we have in President Trump's administration. So God bless them. Let me say thank you to Make Sense to Me Too, who says, Merry Christmas. I really appreciate you. Thank you for that. Let me also say thank you to Cyber X Speed. Pastor Doug Wilson is usually based, but that was a huge L coming from him. Very disappointed. Yeah, you know, like I said, I don't know anything about him personally. I'm sure that he's, you know, probably a very nice person, but that was very offensive to people who understand the truth of the USS Liberty. And, you know, I mean, you can ask all the questions you want, but disingenuous questions in service of a fake news narrative or in service of silencing the truth, that doesn't count. Okay, that is a completely different thing. It would be like walking up to somebody and being like, you know, why are you such a faggot? I'm just asking a question. Right? You know, I'm noticing you look like a total faggot. Why are you such a faggot? What is that designed to do? I'm not really asking a question. I'm making an insinuation about somebody. All right. Now, very briefly, I wanted to touch on this article that I was shocked to see be released by the New York Times. But it should shock no one. Remember, RFK Jr. and HHS recently changed the way things are done with the human organ transplants. It was obvious that hospitals and health systems were putting people to death so that they could harvest their organs so that they could then be transplanted. Here in the United States, we have a Jake. Here in the United States, we have an organ transplant waiting list. But what if I told you that hospitals in the United States were allowing foreigners to come into our country and jump to the front of the line and get themselves an organ if necessary? That is exactly what is happening. Hospitals, the New York Times, doing real journalism, has discovered that you, as a hospital system, could sell a human organ for as much as $2 million. And in one very specific instance, the wife of a hotel magnate from Japan, in September of 2021, she flew here to the United States on a whim. She went to the University of Chicago Medical Center, and within a couple of days, boom, she gets a new heart. That heart came from an American teenager. That American teenager had died. Now, she was not on the organ transplant waiting list here in the United States, but she had money. And the University of Chicago Medical Center was willing to accept her money to put her at the front of the list and to forego giving that organ to an American citizen who had been waiting for God knows how long. Think about, anybody here in the chat ever had somebody who you knew may have died while they were waiting on the organ transplant list? Well, here's another aspect of it. There was a charity that was run by the husband of this woman. Now, that charity just so happened to make a donation to a nonprofit group that was led by none other than the wife of the heart surgeon, the very heart surgeon that implanted this young American boy's heart into this Japanese woman's chest. You've got more than 100,000 people here in the United States right now desperately in need of an organ transplant. You've got thousands who die waiting every single year. There's obviously a shortage of organs, or, you know, that's the way that it's portrayed. Some American hospitals, in order to keep themselves funded at max profits, are aggressively courting international elite transplant patients like this woman. Her name was Kyoko Hira. She was the wife of a rich Japanese businessman. And this is not the only story they discovered. You can actually, we've talked about this on Baseless Conspiracies. I did a number of shows on forced organ transplants, on paid organ transplants. This is huge in the international medical community. And once again, going back to Israel, there tends to be a connection between Israeli doctors doing this in Ukraine, doing it in Eastern Europe, and a number of different things. Oh, yeah, new case. I'm sorry, bro. I know. You absolutely know. He says, don't get me started with these hospitals, Zach. It's a real shame, okay? And once again, a system in our nation designed to take care of American citizens is being perverted and abused, leaving us to die so that the person with the biggest checkbook gets to the front of the line. That is no longer happening in this country. It's no longer going to happen. And that is something that I can really celebrate. And it's only thanks to President Trump, RFK Jr., and the entire administration that he's brought in. Isle of White Privilege. I went and saw it for, we looked at it for a couple of minutes, or not even a couple minutes. I figured out what he was talking about, and I realized it wasn't necessary to cover it. But yes, awesome. We got new ships. Cool. All right. Now, let us go back to the deep state. All right. Lots of deep state talk in today's show. So Lindsay Halligan, now the disqualified Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, Lindsay Halligan for the Eastern District of Virginia. The DOJ over the weekend officially has appealed the ruling which disqualified her and had the charges against Letitia James and James Comey dropped. Now, this appeal was filed on the 19th. I believe that was Friday. They're asking the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit to overturn that ruling by the lower court, which declared her appointment unconstitutional, and it voided everything that she had done while she was in office. Now, The order by the district went far beyond a technical dispute. It set aside the indictment for Letitia James and for James Comey. It granted her motion to dismiss. It declared that all actions which flowed from Lindsay Halligan's appointment were unlawful. That included her securing and then signing the indictments. This is unprecedented. I've never seen this happen before. I've never heard of anything like this happening. But it was Judge Cameron Curry who concluded that Halligan should have never been in this role in the first place because her predecessor, Eric Siebert, had already filled the interim position for a legal maximum of 120 days. And because Halligan was the only prosecutor who signed the Comey and James indictments, he concluded those indictments were defective and had to be tossed. So the DOJ is obviously fighting back. This was a huge win in a technical sense for both Letitia James and James Comey. But in this filing, the Justice Department filed its appeal under 18 U.S.C. 3731, and they signaled that the DOJ intends to fight aggressively to resurrect this case. This may not have been their plan from the start because since that time, we've had a number of attempts at getting new indictments against Letitia James, and it's been unsuccessful. Doesn't sound like they have attempted again with James Comey. Maybe they wanted to see if they would be able to get indictments against them before trying this route. But the filing argues that this was a major overstep from the district by stripping the executive branch of its prosecutorial authority and handing interim appointment power to the judiciary itself. That is not something that they have the power to do. So as it stands right now, this is merely the first salvo in what will undoubtedly be a series of successively greater moves between the DOJ and the appeals court. Maybe the appeals court is going to decide on this. It's going to be quick, and then we're going to have this indictment reinstated against both Comey and Pkwy James. But for the time being, this is all we know. Now, a DOJ prosecutor, an anonymous DOJ prosecutor, has recently admitted why it's so important that we push forward and successfully strip every single deep state asset from the federal government, because what their plan is, they're going to retaliate against not just President Trump, but every single member of the administration if or when the Democrats take back the White House and other positions of power. Now, this is also from the New York Times. They spoke with 60 disgruntled DOJ lawyers, and they gave them a carte blanche platform essentially to attack President Trump, his appointees, everybody who has overhauled the way business is done inside the Department of Justice. Now, the article was called The Unraveling of the Justice Department, and they described the so-called turmoil in the DOJ after President Trump's appointees took over. The only turmoil, in my estimation, is on behalf of the people who were looking to sabotage the incoming Trump appointees, because every single administration has the right to enact their brand of government because we, the people, elected them to do so. The fundamental misunderstanding that these career bureaucrats have is that they should have more power because they know better than whoever it is that we elect. And the people we elect, such as President Trump, are the people. They're the ones who are responsible for placing their choice people inside these various departments. Now, this article goes on to state President Trump's second term has brought a period of turmoil and controversy unlike any in the history of the Justice Department. Trump and his appointees have blasted through the walls designed to protect the nation's most powerful law enforcement agency from political influence. They have directed the course of criminal investigations, openly flouted ethics rules, and caused a breakdown of institutional culture. To date, more than 200 career attorneys have been fired and thousands more have resigned. Good and better. Now, the New York Times interviewed these 60 individuals, and one of them really stood out. This is a person who admitted that they were planning to retaliate against President Trump and his people. All right, so let me go ahead and exit reader view. Okay. So this person was a prosecutor in the D.C. metro area. They said the D.C. office is hemorrhaging bodies, and they will probably get rid of 2 competent people for stating relevant facts that were on the record. I don't think people will truly understand what's happening to justice in America until it impacts them. Oh, you mean justice like when juries who are so poisoned by the brainwashing of the Ivory Coast, Ivory Tower elites and the mainstream media that we can't get a grand jury indictment for people who have clearly broken the law, people who have assaulted federal officers, people who have tried to commit murder, acts of sabotage. You mean like that? That certainly to me seems like an unraveling of justice in America. This person continues, even my family, my parents voted for Trump. I don't think they see it as a priority. I mean, they're not going to be criminally indicted anytime soon. When I tell them what's happening, I don't think they really believe me. It would take a lot of restraint not to retaliate in the next administration. You mean like y'all already retaliated against President Trump the first time? When you realized that he was going to be running for president again, and you sicked the entirety of the federal bureaucracy against him, not only the federal Department of Justice, but a number of individual state justice departments trying to get as many indictments as possible. You did civil, you did criminal, you did everything you could to try to hamper this man's ability to come back and to save the United States of America. But he says, I have a list in my head. And if we get out of this, some of them I'm holding to account, directly admitting they are going to retaliate. A lot could be validly criminally probed, but the back and forth will not be good. Now, the White House has responded. And Abigail Jackson, who is the White House spokesperson, said these are nothing more than the pathetic complaints lodged by anti-Trump government workers. President Trump is working on behalf of the millions of Americans who voted for him across all areas of the country, not the D.C. bureaucrats who try to stymie the American people's agenda at every turn. Now, a lot of people have suggested when talking about, bringing in the golden age, fixing things to ensure that they will remain fixed, they've suggested that the administration isn't working fast enough, that they're not doing the right things. I would suggest to you that this is a big freaking job. This is a huge job. The amount of corruption endemic within the federal bureaucracy is overwhelming, and it is all-encompassing. In order to ensure that retaliation doesn't happen, in order to ensure that it does not immediately unravel as soon as President Trump is gone, I have to believe that the administration is aware of just how dangerous this situation is, how tenuous it is, and how important it is that they are successful. This is a zero-sum game. They cannot afford to lose. And so all I would say is continue to watch, have a little patience, and see what the administration does. Because if President Trump isn't successful, then they are going to retaliate. They've already told us. President Trump is aware of this. The people he's chosen to serve in this administration, they're aware of this. Many of these people could be brought up on criminal charges that are bogus. Many of these people could be assassinated. Many of these people could be bankrupted. Many of these people could find themselves run straight out of the country. And then what happens to the people who voted for President Trump? Well, they're going to make us pay. You better believe it. They're going to retaliate against a hell of a lot more than just the people President Trump put into this government. And they're already trying. But the government is also fighting back. President Trump's administration is fighting back against that deep state government. Now, I mentioned the jury nullifications. Stephen Miller spoke about it this weekend because you remember that story from a couple of months ago? There was a tow truck driver in L.A., Bobby Nunez. He towed an ICE vehicle away in the midst of an arrest. There was a Colombian influencer who would travel around following ICE, live streaming it, telling people where ICE was going to be so that they could show up and protest. And ICE ripped this woman out of her car and finally arrested her. She was already a final order of deportation. She got exactly what she deserved. But while they were arresting her, Bobby Nunez literally towed ICE's vehicle away from the scene. Now, he was arrested, he was charged, but unfortunately, the jury was completely and utterly brainwashed, and they acquitted him. Makes no sense. Here is Bobby being arrested and brought in on the right. This is him towing ICE's vehicle. It's obviously an ICE vehicle. It's got lights all over the place. Why you playing games, I say? Why you do this, man? Why you arresting me? I didn't do nothing. Anyways, this prosecution took place in the in the Central District of California. So that should tell you everything you need to know. It's starting to look like there are certain areas of this country where we're not going to be able to prosecute people because there are so many brainwashed liberals. And there are people who will lie to get onto a jury, pretend as if they are impartial, that they have no preconceived notions about who this person is or what they've done or whether or not they should be prosecuted, that they're going to listen to the evidence. Now, Bill Asaley is no lightweight. He's not a panty waist. All right. Bobby Nunez was arrested for towing an ICE vehicle, which is illegal. He was charged with theft of government property, and he thought it would be funny to interfere with this immigration enforcement operation. He should be looking at 10 years in federal prison. But instead, the people who were sitting on this jury found him not guilty. They refused to convict this man despite the overwhelming evidence that was against him. Now, where is Stephen Miller's clip? Hold on. Okay, here it is. He says, another example of blatant jury nullification in a blue city. The justice system depends on a jury of peers with a shared system of interests and values, and mass migration tribalizes the entire system. So the people who sat on this jury, of course, were in favor of mass migration. They were against President Trump. They were against ICE. And because they hate ICE and they hate President Trump, they found Bobby Nunez not guilty. So what's the answer here? What is the way to handle this? Perhaps holding these trials in areas that are outside of the district where the incident takes place. I don't even know if that's legal. I know they can do it for like murder trials and stuff like that, but usually they just go somewhere else in the state. Maybe they can start going to like, I don't know, Northern California, or maybe do them all in San Diego. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it appears that these juries are so incredibly biased. Let me show you another example. I don't know how this man is going to fare, but this guy in North Carolina, he's now charged with a hate crime and kidnapping. Why? Because a truck with a number of Hispanic men rammed into his truck, and then they tried to flee, and this guy stopped them and made them stay so that the police could get there and he could file a report. He's a 27-year-old guy out of North Carolina, Austin Thomas Herber. They have hit him with a huge bevy of charges, hate crime and kidnapping. This crash occurred in the middle of the night, and police are also not talking about this. So the arrest warrant was issued on December 7th by the Zebulon Police Department. Austin is facing 9 criminal charges in total, and he's the victim. He's the victim. It would be like if they tried to arrest Irina Zarutska for getting in the way of that boy's knife when he was stabbing her in the neck on that train. So his truck was rammed by a black car, and then that car attempted to flee the scene. He attempted to keep them there because the police needed to arrive. What happened to citizen's arrest? All right, now, the prosecutors are alleging that he committed assault inflicting serious injury, which is a misdemeanor, assault and battery, 2 counts of assaults by pointing a gun, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of communicating threats, 2 counts of ethnic intimidation, which is a hate crime, enhancement, and then going armed to the terror of the people. Now, surveillance footage shows a black car losing control while driving through grass and then slamming into a white truck. Emma Larson, who said she was a passenger in Herber's truck, said they were leaving a bar called Smash Masters. They described serious injuries from the crash. They were pretty bruised up and needed 7 stitches to her mouth and face. The crash knocked us out, she said. I woke up and there was blood all over my legs and all over my face. After that, I was hearing that the guys in the car were trying to flee. Police say there were 3 men in the black car and that the driver fled the scene before officers arrived. Investigators claim the 2 men reported being assaulted. The warrants allege Herber kicked and struck one man repeatedly in the head, causing swelling, bruising, facial pain, abrasions, and difficulty moving his jaw. The documents further allege Herber pointed a gold over black HK 9mm handgun at the men without legal justification and made threats that caused them to believe violence would occur. Well, you're damn right. You deserved it. Prosecutors also allege ethnic intimidation, asserting the men were targeted because of their race, color, nationality, or country of origin. It's not because they smashed into his truck and then tried to flee, because that seems like the more obvious answer here. Jessica Thompson is the owner of Smash Masters, the unfortunately named bar where the crash took place. She said she arrived moments before the crash and remained on scene until police arrived, and she, as a witness, flatly disputes the most serious accusations. I was in pure shock. I couldn't believe the charges, she told CBS Local News. When we pulled up, there were 2 people on the ground, and Austin was instructing them not to leave. One got away before the cops came. Thompson added that she never saw a gun and did not witness Herber striking anyone with a firearm. The only thing I saw him do was come up to them and take them by the shoulder and tell them to get back down on the ground because those individuals were trying to leave the scene. The Zebulon Police Department refused to provide clarity regarding the hate crime allegations or the charge of terrorizing others with a firearm. So, sounds like they are trying to railroad this guy and blame him for being white while parked.
Police responded to this crash by the intersection of Mac Todd Road and West Gannon Avenue early Sunday morning. You can see the black car is driving on the grass, loses control, and slams into the white truck. Emma Lawson says she was sitting in the passenger seat in that truck. She and her friends were leaving the bar, Smash Masters.
I woke up and there was blood all over my legs and all over my face. And after that, I don't really know what happened other than hearing that the guys were trying to flee.
Police say there were 3 men in that black car, and the driver left the scene before they arrived. Austin Herber, the driver of the white truck that was hit, is facing several charges, including assault, kidnapping, ethnic intimidation, and the intention to terrorize others with a gun. The owner of Smash Masters, Jessica Thompson, believes these accusations couldn't be further from the truth.
When we pulled up, there was a girl on the ground, and Austin was out of the car, instructing the 2 individuals that were there from the other vehicle to stay on the ground and not to leave. He did ask where they came from and who they were.
Warren say Herber struck the men who were in the black car multiple times in the head, verbally threatened and assaulted them with a handgun, quote, because of their race, color, nationality, or country of origin. Thompson is asking for clarity from the police department because she and several other witnesses say they disagree.
We never saw a gun. I never saw him hit them with a gun. The only thing I saw him do was come up to them and take them by the shoulder and tell them to get back on the ground because those individuals were trying to leave the scene.
CBS 17 News asked the Zebulon Police Department about the claims of ethnic intimidation, as well as the charge to terrorize others with a gun, but they did not provide any clarity. The police department did tell us the driver of the black car who ran away, Juan Campos, was later found and cited for failing to remain at the scene of an accident and failing to reduce to avoid a crash. We asked if speed or impaired driving was involved. That was also not addressed.
So, absolutely insane that they're going after him. Thank God there are multiple witnesses for Austin. It doesn't sound like he did anything wrong. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. And are you sure that he pistol whipped them? It sounds more like they probably smashed their faces on the dashboard of the car when their drunk ass boy smashed into this truck as these people were trying to go home. And they didn't charge Austin with drunk driving, so he was probably the designated driver. He was the only person on scene that apparently was sober, except for the owner who showed up. So, yeah, I saw somebody in the chat say that people should share this case with America First Legal, and I agree. Austin Herber out of Zebulon, 27-year-old North Carolina man. I think that this guy is probably going to get a lot of support from the community because this seems like the most ridiculous attempt to charge somebody for simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. None of this was his fault. He does not deserve to go through this. Let me say thank you to 123SKG for the can, and thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much for that. All right. We have a story next that has to do with a Trump-appointed judge, and we're going to get into a little bit more immigration stuff. But before we do, one quick message from our friends over here on Rumble. Parents, let's talk about something truly important. At a time when truth, faith, and free speech are under attack, there was one young leader who stood up and said, "Prove me wrong," and that leader was Charlie Kirk, and his message inspired an entire generation. It's why the Kids Guide team created the Kids Guide to Charlie Kirk to help you share the values he lived by: faith, family, independent thinking, and the courage to stand for truth. He wasn't afraid to say what others were scared to say out loud. His message was simple: don't silence people, debate them, and prove me wrong. That spirit of open conversation and respect is something our country desperately needs again. Inside the Kids Guide to Charlie Kirk, your kids will follow Charlie growing up in a Christian household. They'll learn how he spoke up as a teenager, challenged one-sided narratives in school, and launched Turning Point USA from a single card table on a college campus, eventually inspiring millions nationwide. The Kids Guide to Charlie Kirk presents Charlie not as a flawless figure, but as someone who believed deeply in conversation, critical thinking, and the idea that Americans have far more in common than what divides us. If you want your kids to grow up with strong, unwavering values, start with the Kids Guide to Charlie Kirk by visiting charliekirkguide.com to order your copy today and give your children the truth and a role model who lived it. That is charliekirkguide.com. Thank you very much. Also, thank you to Duke Nukem USA. We need to go even harder with ICE enforcement so we can motivate people to self-deport more. They're leaving Trump's America. And actually, because we just pulled up this story about ICE, you're right, it's perfect time to go ahead and jump into your song, Inspired. Here we go. By Neil Diamond.
On the boats and on the planes, they're leaving Trump's America, never looking back again. They're leaving Trump's America, home to the country far away. Oh, deport them right away. In the eyes of the law, ICE will find you all.
I love it.
Oh, America's not your place. Pack your crap and board the plane. No more sucking us dry. Back to your shithole, bye. Everywhere across the land, they're leaving Trump's America. When the agents come around, they're leaving Trump's America. No more anchor babies here. They're leaving Trump's America. No more welfare for you now. They're leaving Trump's America. They're leaving Trump's America. They're leaving Trump's America. They're leaving Trump's America.
I'm going to share the link.
They're leaving Trump's America. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
Oh, man.
Country Chesapeake, fuck yeah. Sweet land of liberty, fuck yeah. Of the IC, fuck yeah. Of the IC, fuck yeah.
Dude, this is so good, man. This is so good. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. You guys got to follow him, Duke Nukem, right here, Missouri Patriot 2024. Give him a follow on X. I want to go ahead and share this real quick. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, definitely upload it to YouTube. I bet you'll get a lot of views on that. That is so funny. Okay. All right. Oh, and actually, this was a clip I already put up in the front of the show, so I don't need to show it again. Okay. All right, so let's talk about this Trump-appointed judge. So he has delivered a blistering condemnation of U.S. immigration authorities. He's threatening the government with contempt of court, much like Judge James Boasberg did. This time, though, it's U.S. District Judge Gary Brown. Trump appointed him back in 2019. A lot of people go back to 2019 and say, oh my gosh, Trump appointed so many judges during his first term in office. A lot of them were shit. I'll be the first to tell you. He issued a 24-page ruling excoriating the Department of Homeland Security for what he described as putrid and cramped conditions under which Immigration and Customs Enforcement detained an illegal immigrant on Long Island. That sounds like a problem for New York, if I'm honest with you, because this is a New York facility. Brown warned ICE they could face contempt of court after repeatedly ignoring judicial orders and holding a detainee overnight in a cramped, filthy holding cell never designed for long-term confinement. Now, the case centers on Aaron Anthony Clark. He's a Jamaican national. He entered the U.S. illegally in 2018 on an H-2B work visa. He overstayed the visa, which is illegal. He married a U.S. citizen in 2023, and he applied for permanent residency earlier this year, so well after his visa had expired. He was detained by ICE on December 5th, along with 8 other men. They were confined for days at a time in a small hold room at the Central Islip Federal Courthouse. That cell, Judge Brown noted, was designed to hold one person briefly, not to warehouse 9 men for days on end. All right, well, maybe that was a little excessive, but these are the conditions. There were no beds, there were no bunks, there were no mattresses. These guys were forced to sleep on a filthy concrete floor. There was an open toilet in the center of the room with no privacy. There were no showers, no soap, no toothbrushes, no clean clothing. The lights were left on for 24 hours a day. I guess it was pretty cold at night. Outside, the temperature was close to 21 degrees. Judge Brown noted that oh my goodness, what is this? Forsaken Angel, thank you, my friend. Just gifted 20 subscriptions to the folks over there on Red Pill News. Thank you, friend. Thank you so much. So he said this facility was explicitly barred by deed from housing detainees overnight. On December 11th, Brown ruled that Clark's detention violated due process and ordered that he be immediately released. The judge was outraged, not just at the conditions of the confinement, but he also described a pattern of government misconduct, including ICE failing to produce the detainees for a court-ordered hearing, ICE removing the detainee to New Jersey hours before the hearing without notice, submission of sworn declarations containing demonstrably false transport timelines, refusal to comply with a direct court order to provide photographs of the holding cells, ignoring an explicit order for Clark's immediate release and holding him for another night anyways. At one point, Judge Brown observed that ICE's claimed transport times between Long Island and Newark were physically impossible. So they've now given the government until December 30th to explain why it should not be held in contempt. So I don't know what's going on here, but it does sound like these were conditions that were less than ideal. But considering the fact that we've got tens of millions of illegal aliens here in the United States, I don't necessarily know what the answer is. We clearly need more holding facilities all over the United States. And I hope that the government gets their act in order, because we can't afford a bunch of unnecessary procedural errors, which are going to force people back out on the street. We need to get these guys out of this country as quickly as possible and get it over with as soon as we possibly can. All right, now, this is something else that I mentioned this morning. Actually, I don't know that I mentioned it this morning, but Tom Homan, over the weekend, did another interview with Maria Bartiromo, and you'll probably remember not that long ago, he said that the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement had rescued some 30,000 children that were missing from those 300,000. That number is now 129,000. So take a listen to this. That is a big jump in the numbers in a relatively short period of time.
I want to mention one other thing. Just reported last week, 300,000 children went missing under Joe Biden. They weren't looking for them. They couldn't find them. So far, the Trump administration kept its promise to American people. They've already located 129,000 of these children, thanks to the work of FBI, DHS, and HHS. I want to mention
129,000 of the 300,000 that were previously known to be missing. That is incredible news. Very, very good news. Now, here is another story about a 12-year-old illegal alien. He was arrested down here in Florida, and he's not your average 12-year-old. You can see this mop-top little rascal was arrested for the 2 violent armed robberies of other children in a Lee County neighborhood. Now, this is a report from Gulf Coast News Now, local news down here in Florida. Now, deputies with Lee County Sheriff's Office responded on December 12th to 2 separate armed robbery calls within minutes of each other. Both of them were committed by the same suspect, Pedro Luis, the 12-year-old rapscallion you see on screen. The first incident occurred around 6:40 p.m. This juvenile was walking from Chandler Hall Park to a friend's house. Deputies say Luis jumped out of nearby bushes, pointed a knife at the victim, and demanded, "Give me your shoes." When the victim pushed back and fled, they felt an object strike their back before escaping. By the time they turned around, the suspect had disappeared. Just 6 minutes later, at approximately 6:46 p.m., deputies were called back to Chandler Hall Park for another armed robbery. This time, a victim reported that Luis approached them on a bicycle, brandished a knife, and threatened to stab them if they resisted while stealing a backpack. The stolen backpack was valued at $90. It contained a number of valuable items, including AirPods worth approximately $140, cologne at $150, a school-issued Dell laptop, also cash and clothing totaling an additional $50. Here's another shocking detail. Deputies say Luis later posted on social media with the stolen backpack. He partially covered his face. They also he reportedly deleted the post after the crime was committed, but both victims were able to positively identify this little this street urchin in a lineup, and deputies arrested him at his residence, and they transported him to the Lee County Jail for processing. Now, they've also confirmed that an immigration hold has been placed, meaning that ICE has been notified, and he is going to be turned over to ICE so that they can send him back to his nation of origin. Now, he would only be placed on an ICE detainer if he is here unlawfully in the United States, or if he's a non-citizen whose lawful status has expired in one fashion or another. Let's go ahead and take a look at the local report.
Child accused of putting your life in danger as deputies arrested 12-year-old Pedro Luis in Lee County. Thanks for counting on us here at Gulf Coast News. I'm Elise Chingari.
And I'm Channing Frampton. We've mapped out where this happened. Let's show you this map over here. It happened in Fort Myers, right here in the Chandler Hall Park area. New at 7, Madison Zaleski explains how deputies tracked that 12-year-old down.
A 12-year-old boy is accused of threatening 2 people with a weapon here at Chandler Hall Community Park in Lee County. Now, just hours ago, the Lee County Sheriff's Office released a report detailing how deputies found him.
Lee County deputies arrested 12-year-old Pedro Luis Friday morning. Deputies got 2 separate calls last Friday about a robbery involving a weapon. Deputies say one victim was walking on Chattanooga Drive near the train tracks when Luis came out of the bushes, pointed a small knife, saying, "Give me your shoes." The victim pushed Luis and ran home. After a search in the air and on the ground, deputies were unable to find the suspect. Shortly after the first call, deputies got another similar report of a robbery along Royal Palm Park Road. Deputies say another victim was on the playground with his friends as Luis rode up to them on a bicycle. Deputies say Luis threatened the victim with a knife and said he was going to take his backpack. The victim did not try to stop him, and Luis ran away with his backpack.
Crazy, you know, because he's supposed to.
I thought he had a bike. He just left the bike. Let me tell you guys a funny story when this is over about a bike being stolen.
Be home, just doing, homework and all that. You're not supposed to be robbing people out here, But like, it's not not normal, but it's not that surprising.
And both victims were able to identify Luis during a photo lineup.
So listen to this. Years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I was, it was like 20 years ago. I was at work and I had gotten a new roommate. This guy was not the most responsible person, and he left the house open. Somebody came in and stole a bunch of stuff. Everything that was like stealable in the living room and the dining room, they stole. Some electronics and, a couple of things like some shoes, a skateboard. And so I called the cops, and I used to ride my bike everywhere. I've still got the bike. Well, I've got the bike that replaced this bike, but my bike was on my porch. I had like a porch. It was on a dead end street. And it dead-ended into this field, and then there was a Catholic school behind the field. So I was waiting outside for the cop. She showed up. She takes my report. I tell her everything that's missing. I take her inside the house. I show her where everything was. And then while we were in the house, some little shit came and stole my bike. We go back out front, and I see a bike sitting on the porch, and I don't look at it because I just figure it's my bike. She drives away, and I go look, and instead of like a mountain bike, it's a little like Huffy, like 2-speed or something like that. And so I immediately call the cop, and I'm like, get back here. You're not going to believe this. While we were inside, somebody stole my bike. And she's like, what? Are you serious? And I'm like, yes, I'm totally serious. Get back here. And so she comes back, and I explain my bike. I get her a picture of my bike, and I'm like, this was my bike. It was an expensive bike. And she's like, well, I got to take this bike. And I'm like, go for it. I'm like, it's too small for me. Well, I'm not going to ride that. And so she takes that bike and she fills out the report. Anyways, I have to make an insurance claim for the house. They paid me for everything. I got a new bike. I got paid back for all my other stuff. Anyways, but I couldn't believe it. I could not believe the balls on that kid, whoever it was that stole my bike and left that bike on the porch while the cops were there. We were inside. The door was open. Anyways, that's the kind of shit we're dealing with with criminals nowadays. Oh, man, it is awful. And that was 20 years ago. And now you got 12-year-olds robbing people at knife point. This is the kind of stuff we're dealing with. All right, now, take a look at this. This is a story about illegal aliens, but the Trump administration actually set these people free. So they actually busted an illegal alien stash house. It sounds like there was more than a couple of them. There were dozens of illegals who were being stuffed into one of these houses. They were basically being paid slave wages and forced to work 7 days a week. Now, it was a Chinese national who was here legally, and they owned a sushi restaurant. And they would bring illegals here. They would force them to work for them and then keep them prisoner, essentially, inside these homes in Arizona.
A neighbor's surveillance camera captures agents preparing to raid a home in Tempe. According to court documents, the home near Elliott in Rural Road was considered a stash house, where about 10 stayed. Investigators say they were transported using white vans to and from Sakura Sushi Phoenix, where they worked every day, 7 days a week, with no days off.
They had a white van, and they would leave at 9 a.m. and come back at 9 p.m.-ish, right around dark, with a van full of guys. They'd all walk in like this, just looking down, no eye contact.
Brandy Foreman, who lives right next door to that home, knew something was off.
I was super uncomfortable with just the amount of guys and how nervous they looked.
They were very self-conscious. If you looked at them, they'd turn their back.
Gary Gallagher, who lives in Mesa near Southern and Gilbert Road, tells a similar story.
But you would never see them outside.
His home is across the street from another so-called stash.
Oh, wow. Reagan says that's just a few miles away from my house. Now, here's another one that they had.
House.
The person that was buying it looked like a Chinese man and woman, but when they moved in, they didn't.
According to the complaint, those housed here helped run the restaurant in Mesa.
In all, there were 4 restaurants and 4 stash houses, all of them raided by federal agents last week. Now, one of the owners and 2 of the restaurant's managers have been charged.
The complaint notes one of the owners, Young Lao, was born in China and has been a naturalized U.S. citizen for more than a decade. Agents going undercover at that Phoenix restaurant, noticing Chinese employees directed tasks and work of the employees of Hispanic ethnicity, and the Hispanic employees had limited interactions with customers.
It was pretty standard.
We had this former ICE agent review the complaint. He asked that we not...
Nuke, you're totally right. He says if you ever watch the Daredevil series, this is exactly what Madame Gao did with the illegal Chinese. You're totally right.
Share his name.
It is bigger than, your usual cases involving worksite enforcement.
It appears ICE began investigating back in March, but court documents show neighbors called him.
So Nuke also says never, ever trust Chinese gas station sushi. Also, never trust all-you-can-eat sushi.
In March, but court documents show neighbors called Tempe police with concerns back in 2023 and 2024.
Wow, during the Biden administration, and nobody did anything about it. Isn't that funny?
Tempe police said their patrol squad attempted to gain intel, but were not able to establish any probable cause. Gilbert police were also alerted in May of last year. They told Arizona's Family Investigates what was reported was not criminal activity, and there was no mention of immigration.
Wow.
Neighbors of these houses, thankful action was taken.
I was thinking, finally, someone's doing something about this, because I definitely was concerned.
Lau is charged with harboring illegal aliens and knowingly employing unauthorized aliens. His two managers, one of them his brother, are also charged. Lau's home was also raided. His attorney, though, did not return our calls or emails for comment. Jared?
What do you want to bet? He and his wife end up back in China before too long. Something tells me they still have connections. All right, now if that doesn't piss you off, this is going to. Take a look at this. In Lawrence, Massachusetts, Mayor Biron de Peña testifies in a court hearing. Now, the interesting aspect of this is that mass migration has convinced the residents of this Massachusetts city, Lawrence, Massachusetts, to vote for a man who can't even speak English. It looks more like a foreign nation in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And it was reported by the Eagle Tribune that the mayor of Lawrence, Brian de Peña, testified earlier this month during a hearing in support of former acting police chief William Castro's appeal against revoked credentials from a 2024 traffic incident. Now, according to WCVB, Castro engaged in a motor vehicle pursuit in violation of the policies of the Lawrence Police Department. Moreover, he was untruthful regarding the chase while he and his superiors failed to investigate the incident independently. We've now got video that shows de Peña demanded a translator during the hearing because his English was so pathetic. De Peña's native language is Spanish, so the mayor of an American city can't speak English good enough to be able to testify in a court hearing. The judge denied de Peña's request to have his personal assistant act as his translator because he and others in the case were unable to speak Spanish. Too much would get lost in the translation. Here is an actual video clip showing that the mayor doesn't know how to speak the language of the nation in which he is elected to govern.
So I'm advised by counsel for the respondent that they indeed encourage this and had substitution and have no objection and waive any objection they would have to the your services as a translator here. The division has a concern and has raised an objection based on the fact that counsel, much like me in my capacity as a hearing officer, don't speak Spanish, and therefore we're unable to decide independently whether questions are being translated both directions from the attorney and from the witness accurately. So I appreciate that objection. I do believe that under the circumstances, without objection from the respondent, we could proceed with your services. The risk is that there are many people associated with these proceedings, including the respondent himself and other people on the...
All right. So, what a world. Deuce is Sweet says, Merry Christmas, Zach and Lisa. Blessings to you both for 2026. In case you missed it, I sent you a video update on a Substack on Ed the Veteran with the GoFundMe and showed us a couple of weeks ago. Oh, I did miss it, and I'll go ahead and see about pulling that up. Also, I just checked President Trump's Truth Social, and he has appointed the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, as the United States Special Envoy to Greenland. He says, Jeff understands how essential Greenland is to our national security and will strongly advance our nation's interests for the safety, security, and survival of our allies and, indeed, the world. Congratulations, Jeff. So I don't know when Jeff Landry's... when his term ends. So can you tell me, Deuce is Sweet, what you put in the subject of the email? Does it say something about Ed? I'll search for Ed. No, that's not it. How about update maybe? Let me see. I don't see anything. No. Okay. Well, I'll have to go back and look through it, and maybe we can watch it tomorrow. I don't see it right up here at the top of my email, and I've got quite a few of them. So, okay. Oop, wrong button right there. Okay. So, this is another one that is a really tough pill to swallow, but it just shows how dangerous this situation is. So, an Amazon driver on December 11th comes up to a woman's house, drops a package off, and then steals her cat. Now, the way he steals her cat indicates to me that he probably intended to eat it. He did not treat it as you would treat a pet, and that is exactly what this is. This cat, Piper, has a microchip, and they haven't been able to locate it. Just drop the link in the chat. Oh, okay. See the link. Got it. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. We will open that in a moment. I'm just going to play it for you. This is like one of the most heartbreaking stories I've heard. This is a beautiful cat, Siamese, and the cat was just outside, and the guy acted like he was going to pet it, and instead of petting it, he picked it up by the scruff of its neck and then took it with him in his car. And the cat is gone. Okay, I guarantee you this cat's gone.
Now at 10:30, a desperate plea for help finding a beloved pet cat believed to be stolen by an Amazon delivery driver. The driver was captured on surveillance video appearing to take the cat after dropping off a package at the home.
Carlos Saucedo is live in Lakewood, where he spoke to the cat's owner tonight. Carlos?
Michael, sure, the catastrophe happened here in Lakewood last week. Now, Piper the cat is still missing, but surveillance video shows as an Amazon driver steals the cat. Tonight, again, we talked to the homeowner. We've heard of the term cat burglar, as in a thief known for their stealth. But here, we allegedly see it in the literal sense. Surveillance video shows an Amazon Flex worker dropping off a package and is then caught befriending Piper, a pet cat. Moments later, the man grabs Piper by the scruff and walks off.
And you hear it
kind of
meowing.
a helpless feeling, though, because we watched her get taken, so I don't know where she is or if she's okay.
Diane Huff Medina has had Piper for 6 years. This Siamese mixed cat is an...
Look at this cat. This cat is beautiful, and it... Oh, my God, I'm so pissed.
Indoor-outdoor pet who is microchipped, but was not wearing a collar at the time of the cat napping. The cat abduction happened Thursday around 6 p.m. in the 5800 block of Hazelbrook Avenue in Lakewood. Diane didn't realize Piper had gone missing until the next day after seeing the ring footage of the front of her home.
Gets out of the car, delivers the package. You see the flash go off. He takes a picture of it, and then he turns to the cat. And at first, it looks like he's just going to pet her, and you can hear her meowing in the video, but she sounds irritated.
She has reached out to Amazon, as well as the Lakewood Sheriff's Department.
I think that's been the most frustrating part, is thinking I'd get a little more support or help from them. And I realize it's a third-party driver, but still affiliated with them, and I'm sure they know who he is.
Diane says her 3 young boys are struggling with Piper's absence, not knowing if she's okay.
You know, we got her in 2019, 2 months before their dad passed in an accident. And so she's kind of that, you know, she's been a source of comfort especially for the boys.
All right. Now, the good news is Amazon has fired this guy. Amazon has identified him to the police. The police are pressing charges. We don't know what charges they're going to be pressing, but this is in Los Angeles, okay? And it's the LA County Sheriff's Department who is filing the charges against him. She says Amazon and law enforcement know who he is. Charges are being filed. Have not been successful in speaking with anyone at Amazon who can give me any information. We do not have Piper back. I'm hopeful we can still find her. I am so sad to say that there's no way at this point. This was on the 11th. It's now been 11 days. Piper has not been found. Piper is gone, unfortunately. I mean, this guy probably took the cat home and ate it that night or did something else equally as terrifying. Now, I'm just going to do a quick search for Diane's name in, Oh gosh, can we go to her account? Maybe she's posted an update. No, I don't have a Facebook and I can't see anything else. Oh man, this is so heartbreaking. Diane Huff Medina. Let's see if we've got an update on the story. Nope. All they say is that the cat is still missing. Amazon fires him. Let's do the past day. See if there's anything from the past day. Nope. Nothing from the past day. So sad. So sad. But you guys, if that's any lesson to take away, is to protect your pets, especially in this America, because you have no idea who is going to be around. I hope that guy gets everything that's coming to him. That is an unforgivable sin as far as I'm concerned. Deuce is sweet. Thank you for dropping that link. Let's go ahead and check out the update on Ed. Oh, shucks. Hold on. Now it's... Oh, no. See if I can... I got to find it in the chat again. Dang it. It may be too late. You might have to drop the link again. Nope, I found it. Copy link address. There we go. Okay, so... Okay, we actually played this video on the air.
Just seeing if I could have help scanning this. Thank you. What was your name? Ed. I'm Sam. This may be overwhelming, but we do have a little surprise for you. So if you would like to come with me, there's a lot of support for you here, man. I want to reveal that this is one of the largest individual fundraisers in GoFundMe history. If you want, you will be able to retire because we've raised you $1.77 million.
Something that dreams of me, Presley. I cannot express in any words how thankful I am to all the people.
And you can send me a message to your friend.
Thank you, honey. I appreciate everything.
Oh, God. Don't cry again. Oh, he deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. Oh, okay. Now, Margaret, if you're watching, I got your email that said you were blocked. I don't know why, but if you just replied to my email with your handle, then I can go ahead and get you unblocked, my friend. Oh, God. Ed, he's such a good dude. He deserves everything that comes to him. All the blessings that can be bestowed upon him. Okay. Before we watch this next clip, quick message from our friends over at Rumble and 1775 Coffee. You guys, if you still haven't tried 1775 Coffee, you need to get with the program. You have an opportunity right now. Some of those starter kits are still available for you to purchase, and you're going to get their bold dark roast, their smooth medium roast, and their Vitality Mushroom Coffee that gives you clean energy and laser focus without the crash. All of it made from the highest quality beans you can get. Single origin, small batch, toxin-free, mold-free. You're also going to get a gold spoon clip, a very strong frother, and a black 1775 tumbler. All told, it's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for $99. This is for the people who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wonder if it's actually worth it. It truly is. Spoiler alert. So head on over to 1775coffee.com/studio, grab your starter kit before they're gone, and get yourself a package of bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Thank you so much to the good folks at Rumble and 1775 Coffee. Now, let me refresh our screen right there. And jumping back in to the, as far as I'm concerned, the political immortal, Stephen Miller. He was speaking about the Somali fraud over the weekend. And this is now going to transition into a brief segment about that Somali fraud. I thought it was appropriate to open Somali fraud with what appeared to maybe be a Somali stealing someone's cat to eat it. Now, the White House has had Stephen Miller out doing the rounds, talking pretty strongly about just how big this Somali fraud case is and why it's important that we pay attention to it. I had already mentioned that the amount of money that was stolen in a single year probably is going to eclipse the yearly GDP of Somalia as a whole. But this is about much more than just about much more than just Minnesota, because Somalians have come and settled in a number of different areas. Clearly not just Minnesota. It's all over the country. And everywhere they go, they come to America with this goal of taking advantage, stealing as much as they possibly can.
First of all, regarding the situation in Minnesota, and by the way, not just Minnesota, we have Somali refugees that were dumped here by Democrats in Ohio and Massachusetts. Let me just say, we should not be shocked when you import a population whose primary occupation is pirate, that they are going to come here and steal everything we have. Somalia has this giant coastline, and the only industry they have created after hundreds of years is piracy, stealing what anyone going through who has actually built something has made. So yes, the pirates have stolen all of our money, and they have to go home, Jesse. That's the situation we're in right now.
Okay, well, Tampon says you guys are after him, and it's mean and it's unfair, Miller.
So he's presided over, this corrupt, incompetent loser has presided over the largest theft of American taxpayer dollars in history. It's never been equaled before. The amount of money that's been stolen is larger than the entire GDP of Somalia. In other words, the Somalians they brought here have thefted more than all the Somalians in Somalia have ever created for themselves in all the time that has existed up until now. So there needs to be a lot of people going to jail. And I can promise you the Department of Justice is launching an investigation that is commensurate in force and in purpose with the scope, scale, size, and magnitude of this controversy.
Okay, so they just doubled their GDP thanks to Tampon. Way to go. So the commie boot camp. Sometimes we laugh at this. We see him doing sit-ups. Is that a concern to you, Mr. Miller?
Well, what's a concern to me is that we don't have a Democrat Party anymore. They still have the D in front of the name. They call themselves Democrats. We have a Communist Party, but it's actually the worst kind of communism imaginable, which is DEI communism. So it's not just we're going to redistribute your wealth, it's we're going to import massive numbers of illiterate refugees and give all your wealth to them. And we're going to give their kids the first spot in every college. And we're going to make sure their kids are the next wave of doctors who are going to butcher you when you're having a medical emergency. So we've combined the two worst ideologies imaginable. Communism and DEI is literally a recipe for national death. That is what Democrats are bringing us, Jesse.
When you import third world peoples with no attempt to assimilate them into your first world nation, they bring their third world problems and they turn your first world nation into a third world hellhole. Now, it has been determined that out of that many billions of dollars that was stolen from the state of Minnesota, at least $1 billion has gone into the campaign coffers of Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, and Keith Ellison. Now, we knew that some money had gone to them. Ilhan Omar had claimed that she had tracked some of it down and returned it from the Feeding Our Future scam. But it's much larger. It's much, much larger. And this is likely one of the reasons why all three of these politicians have zero will to do anything about getting to the bottom of this. They're directly stonewalling. We already know Keith Ellison had met with these people. He told them, hey, brother, we got to stick together. I'm here for you. You got my back. I got yours. Tim Walz, he's just a giant pussy, pardon my French. Ilhan Omar, she is a pirate, okay? She came here because her family was part of the ruling junta that was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Somali citizens. It's arguably her and her family who set this nation on the disastrous path that it's on right now, made it possible for her and her ilk to invade the United States of America.
Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison. We see a web of connections between them and those directly involved in the fraud. For example, Ilhan Omar alleged enabling introducing the 2020 Meals Act, which was ultimately subject to fraud. Held a campaign victory party at the Safari restaurant. That's where one of the men who run that restaurant has associations to the convicted individuals. And then there's Tim Walz. House Oversight Investigation role in his role as governor, or Keith Ellison, the Attorney General. His job is to enforce the law in Minnesota, but instead he's getting donations after meeting with the Feeding Our Future representatives. The Feeding Our Future, the biggest known yet part of this entire theft ring. Ilhan Omar.
It is fraud. It's a theft ring, but it's also fraud. There is a tremendous amount of fraud. It is completely endemic throughout every structure in Minnesota. And it's been known for quite some time. They have directly covered it up because, number one, they wanted to protect the votes. Number two, they wanted to protect their own payments. And number three, well, they just want to destroy America. Now, over the weekend, Dollar Store Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, was asked about Oversight Chairman James Comer's recently announced investigation into Minnesota. And he called James Comer, rather than answering about the fraud, he said that James Comer was a joke, an embarrassment, and an unserious individual and a malignant clown. I believe we have a clip of that. It is rather short, but it is poignant and relevant. Well, got to get past this stupid ad.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is accusing Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and AG Keith Ellison of not cooperating with the committee's investigation into some of the widespread fraud happening there with the social services in the state. Do you think they should cooperate with the committee's investigation, and do you have concerns about what's happening in the state?
James Comer is a joke, an embarrassment, an unserious individual, and a malignant clown.
So, obviously a case of projection. He is directly describing himself. There is nothing clownish about the investigation into the tens of billions of dollars that have been stolen, not only from the people of Minnesota, but the rest of the United States of America. So House Oversight had launched this investigation into the widespread fraud, which seems to encompass every aspect of the entitlement industry in the state of Minnesota. Billions upon billions of dollars have been siphoned off, and many of it sent abroad, a lot of it used to enrich individuals in the community. But the announcement wrote, in the announcement that was written to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison, the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is investigating reports of widespread fraud in Minnesota's social services programs. The committee has serious concerns about how you, as the governor, and the Democrat-controlled administration allowed millions of dollars to be stolen. Add a B in lieu of that M. The committee also has concerns that you and your administration were fully aware of this fraud. We know they were because the whistleblowers came forward and people in Walz's administration directly retaliated against them. Chose not to act for fear of political retaliation, he said, and the committee therefore requests documents and communications showing what your administration knew about this fraud and whether you took action to limit or halt the investigation into this widespread fraud. Now, to date, as far as I know, Walz's administration has not handed anything over. The legislature in Minnesota has been doing their own investigation, and last week there was a number of hearings, and the Republicans on the committee were speaking with members of the Walz administration who were complaining that the committee was not handing over information about whistleblowers. And they said, to be frank, We don't trust you. They've attempted to reach out to you in the past, and these people have been retaliated against. They have had their lives and their livelihoods threatened. Now, we also know that Scott Paine has launched his own investigation looking at the money trail and the potential ties to terrorism. We also know about Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner and his investigation, because the entire Somali community appears to be eating up the Section 8 housing. This reporter asking Jeffries this question is entirely relevant, and as the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives, it would be his responsibility to help make sure that these people have taken this seriously, because it is the entirety of the tax base of the United States. It is the entirety of this nation that is being ripped off by the Somalis that are committing these crimes. Now, Comer responded himself, and he said that Hakeem Jeffries is a dollar store Obama and a low IQ individual. He said at the end of the day, to defend Tim Walz is going to be a huge mistake for the Democrats, because everyone in Minnesota knows that this fraud has been taking place for a very long time. Let's hear it from James Comer. As soon as I get past this. What? Okay.
That's the third time he's called me a clown. Look, everyone that watches his interviews and sees how he tries to imitate Obama, they wonder why he's got the nickname Dollar Store Obama. Look, he's a low IQ individual who has to resort to name calling. That's what he criticizes Donald Trump over. I don't care what he calls me. He can come to Kentucky and campaign against me. I'll pay for his gas bill. But at the end of the day, to defend Tim Walz is going to be a huge mistake for the Democrats, because everyone in Minnesota knows that this fraud has been taking place for a long time. All I'm doing is my job getting the backs of the taxpayers. If Hakeem Jeffries doesn't like it, he can go fly a kite, because at the end of the day, the American people expect their tax dollars to be spent wisely.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm hoping that our tax dollars are not going to be taken out of our pockets any longer, because the only reason we have so little in this nation, the average everyday person, is because of the type of grift that we are calling out. Now, it's also worth mentioning that a straw poll was taken in the state of Minnesota, and guess who is at the top of the heap to win the Republican primary? Our man, Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell is projected to win the Minnesota gubernatorial primary, which will be held late in 2026. I believe Shane said that it's in August, and then, of course, the general election is in November. But as this point, Mike Lindell on Polymarket is sitting at about 55%. Now, the next closest person to him is Lisa DeMuth with 20%. Kendall Qualls with 16%, and Phil Parrish with 6%. Now, in the last week, that's when Mike Lindell announced that he was running. Basically, as soon as he announced, he took off. Okay, now he was already projected pretty high. If Mike Lindell was going to run, he was sitting at about 45, 46, 47%, and everybody else was kind of jumping in and around. Lisa DeMuth has kind of been all over the place. But right now, Mike Lindell has pulled way ahead of the pack, and everybody else is down here in the bottom 20. If Mike Lindell can keep the focus on the fraud that has destroyed Minnesota, and we continue to get the truth coming out about the things that Mike has been pushing across this nation for a very long time, namely election fraud, then it's going to be very easy, I think, for Mike Lindell, especially if we get rid of all of those Somalis that have destroyed the state of Minnesota. Now, right here, James Comer has also announced that they are expanding this current investigation into the fraud uncovered in Minnesota. He says it's time for Minnesota officials to appear before Congress for transcribed interviews. So James Comer has now officially asked for the testimony of several key officials in the state of Minnesota so that they can actually have them come in and testify under oath. So Scott Paine has written this email to the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, and they are seeking all of the suspicious activity reports. I'm sorry, this is James Comer writing to Scott Paine, asking for all of the suspicious activity reports that would be in the hands of the Department of Treasury. And they have a list of accounts that they want them to look at, including a number of the organizations that have already been indicted for fraud. Comer has also sent this request for information to Attorney General Pam Bondi. They are seeking information about everything that's happening in the state of Minnesota, and they need to look at a number of particular individuals. So they're also looking for any information that the DOJ has been able to uncover up until this point. But we're going to get Tim Walz in there. We're going to get maybe Ilhan Omar coming and testifying. We're going to get Keith Ellison coming and testifying. And then largely, I would imagine, based upon the firsthand witness accounts of the Minnesota whistleblowers, those people are probably going to testify. And then the people who were intimidating them, they're going to come in and testify. Tim Walz is done in the state of Minnesota, and it's only a matter of time before we fix all of this garbage that's been going on. Now, speaking of election integrity, this takes us to what I think is the most important story of the state. Not a huge story in terms of content, but a very important story. Let's see. 2812 VPJ says, play the chief of police Washington, D.C. stepping down speech. Oh, yeah, you know what? I saw that over the weekend. I know I bookmarked it, but hold on. D.C. police chief freak out. All right, so I've got this, and actually, before we go into the NDAA story, let me play this clip because it's short. Okay, so this is the chief of police, Pamela Smith, on the 19th, in her goodbye speech, because she stepped down after she was exposed for manipulating crime statistics. We exposed her, and then Congress exposed her, and the administration, I believe, they asked her to take a hike.
Never would I compromise my integrity. Never would I compromise 28 years in law enforcement for a few folk who couldn't stand to be held accountable. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it again. So I'm going to the Bible when I say this to my haters. F you. The same folks who said in that report that they changed their numbers, and I did not. The report is very clear. I did not direct anyone. You should investigate those folks.
Wow. So she's clearly suggesting that she never told people to change their numbers. It was her subordinates. Even though she set the tone, she was running the entire department. And as I showed you last week, this is not something that is unusual. This seems to be happening at police departments all around the country. There's a reason she lost her job, and I can't believe that she stepped down and said, F you. She is a victim, a perennial victim, and she deserves to lose her job. All right, so like I was saying in the introduction, the National Defense Authorization Act, unfortunately, although it is designed to fund the military every fiscal year, it has become a vehicle for Congress to insert provisions that maybe they wouldn't be able to get passed on their own because, of course, we have to fund the military. If they put a provision in there that somebody doesn't like, they're still going to be able to get it passed because, as I said, we have to fund the military. Now, what's unusual about this is that normally these provisions are things that are patently bad for America. They generally are things that we would fight against and we have fought against in the past. However, there was a hidden provision which seems to codify a portion of President Trump's election integrity plan. So, a little bit of backstory. You probably remember back in 2022, there was a federal complaint and testimony that was given by Carrie Lake and Mark Fincham in district court in Arizona. Now, this complaint was a civil rights action for declaratory and injunctive relief. They were attempting to prohibit the use of electronic voting machines in the state of Arizona prior to the 2022 midterms. Now, in their complaint, they included testimony from a friend of the show, Clay Parikh. Clay was a former voting systems lab technician contractor, and Parikh discovered that the 19-inch ballot printing error that was plaguing Maricopa County, it was a 19-inch ballot printed on 20-inch paper, and so the margins were incorrect. And when these ballots would go through the machines, they would routinely fail. Now, when we got to the 2022 midterms, this caused massive delays. It disenfranchised thousands of voters. A lot of people probably never had their ballots counted. Now, Clay had been working as a security tester and a subject matter expert for a company called Wiley Laboratories and for Pro V&V. He worked there from 2008 to 2017. And while he was working at both of these companies, he was testing hundreds of different voting machines. And that included, importantly, Dominion Voting Systems machines. Dominion Voting Systems, of course, now is Liberty Vote. He also tested ES&S voting machines. Now, it was Clay's testimony that it would only take him somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes to hack into either of these systems, and his best time, he could do it in 2.5 minutes. Every time he did these hacks, he recorded them, he reported them, and then he gave his reports to the voting system test labs. Now, what was most concerning about his testimony was when he was hacking into ES&S DS200 machines. So he is asked in his testimony, you were able to hack into the DS200 when you were in that position? He said, yes, I was. He said, did that take a long time to do? And he said, no, but I was stopped from going further. And the question then is, so you were going to, but you didn't complete it? And he says, because my approach, I wanted to actually get in and control the software because you can actually manipulate the statistical data on the system. And you wanted to show that that could be done? Yes. Before it even gets to the EMS? Yes, I did. But you were stopped from doing that at that point? Yes. Well, then the question becomes, why would anyone whose job it was to test the security of these machines, a voting system test lab, why would they stop their own contractor from going any further to prove the vulnerabilities that inherently exist in the machines that are about to be used in this upcoming election? Now, the voting systems testing labs are not contracted by the state or any government jurisdiction, but they are actually they are actually contracted by the voting machine vendors themselves. So that would mean that the voting machine vendor, in this instance, it would be Dominion, they would perhaps not want the voting system testing lab to show that it was possible to hack in and then manipulate the data on their machines. And so they would just put a stop to it and they wouldn't want to do any further testing. That makes a lot of sense. But it's also what allowed for these machines to be insecurely and unsafely used in so many elections over the last, 20 years. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen anymore. Because with the passage of this new National Defense Authorization Act, which is now signed into law, President Trump signed it on Thursday, the 18th, there is a tiny little provision that's included into this 3,000-plus page bill that nobody in Congress read. Why? Because it's 3,000 freaking pages. All right? This is why they sneak provisions in to this NDAA. Section 6805 is entitled Requiring Penetration Testing as part of the testing and certification of voting systems, which means now what Clay was doing was an option. All right. Now, Clay, as his job, he was like, of course, I would want to do this. Of course, you want to show if there is a vulnerability. You want to make sure that these types of things can't be done, but they could be. And he was showing that they could. That was not something that was required for the testing of these machines. Now it is required. And now, because Dominion was purchased by Liberty Vote, and Liberty Vote has already said that they are going to open up their systems. They're opening up their source code. They're opening up their machines. They are giving full access to everything so that it can be ensured that the types of things Clay and others determined were happening before are going to continue happening in the future. The way that they have now required this type of testing as part of any further proof and certification, because again, if a voting machine is not certified, it cannot be legally used. And these voting machines were not certifiable prior to this. It's a different ballgame going forward. This is an amendment to the Help America Vote Act of 2002. So they've added the required penetration testing section, which provides for the conduct of penetration testing as part of the testing, certification, decertification, and recertification of voting system hardware and software. And it must be done by an accredited laboratory and somebody like Clay Parikh. So this amendment is now added to the Help America Vote Act, and it requires that penetration testing must be done as a condition of certification from the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. And it allows consultation with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And I know you're probably, some people out there are probably rolling their eyes, Building 7, or any other federal agency on lab selection criteria and other aspects of the program. So quite literally, the federal government could, under President Trump's brilliant mental maneuvering, create a lab testing agency inside the federal government designed specifically to do this penetration testing. Or it could be rolled into one of the agencies that we have successfully taken control of. So this is a small, but it is a measurably important aspect of ensuring that election security is something that truly happens. It's just a simple part of it. But so is Harmeet Dhillon's efforts at the Civil Rights Division with cleaning up the voter rolls and many more things that President Trump put into his executive orders. I have another important piece of this. Now, Anna Paulina Luna, Una Panuna Banca, over the weekend, when she was speaking at TPUSA, she said, as part of her speech, that she has gotten a promise from Johnson that codifying President Trump's executive orders for election security are the first thing that they're going to work on when they come back for the next session of Congress in January of 2026. This is so important. And if they blow smoke up our ass on this and they refuse to address it, then it's the kind of thing that if it's not done, the whole thing could be a wash. Everything that President Trump and this administration have done could be a wash. But I truly do believe that because they know how important this is, that this is now going to finally happen. I think that they were simply waiting for 2026. They were getting through the holidays, and now the gloves are coming off. So we have to wait and see what happens, but I think that this is really, really good for everything we've been fighting for years. Spud Hill, what? I see my name, but I don't see any other message in there. Want to make sure I didn't miss anything else. Okay. Timmy, have you ever seen a grown man naked? I love Airplane. It's kind of disturbing now to look back and hear that line. But anyways, we also have an update on on Eric Swalwell. Oh, let me very quickly say thank you very much to Red Gun for the shades. Thank you to Sean Joe for the can and the cookie. Judy the Lady Pug, thank you for 1, 2, 3 cookies. Thank you, Sean Joe, for another cookie. Thank you to Filter Dog, who says, another great American story. Oh, okay. This is a tweet from Matt Van Swole. Let me pull this up real quick. Oh, God, I actually saw this video, and yeah, this is so nice. Okay, so this guy, he's in North Carolina. He's got a tree removal company. And he goes to this woman's house, and she doesn't have any money. She's a widow, and she asks for some help, and he does a lot more than what she expects.
This is Nana Abernathy. I was going to let you know that we're a load of wood for free. I ain't coming back for no money.
You ain't going...
I ain't going to charge you. I'm going to let you have it for free.
So she has a wood-burning stove in order to keep her house warm during the winter. She doesn't have the money to buy it. He's a wood chopper. He's giving her the logs for free.
Thank you.
I know you said that you was having a rough time, and that's what we try to do. We try to help people out, and I wanted to bless you before Christmas, and we're not coming back for no money.
That's the nicest Christmas present I could get.
It's all for you. Can I get a hug?
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. I hope you have a great Christmas and a great holiday, and I hope the Lord blesses you.
Okay.
Okay? You have a good evening. He just did. That's right.
Thank you.
Yep. I'll get you took care of, and we'll get this dumped out right here for you.
Okay. Thank you.
You have a great. It's a beautiful load of wood.
Look at
right
all
there.
that wood. Oh, my goodness.
It's cut pretty small, too. That way she can handle it nice and be easy on her.
Wow. Now, here's the other thing. He didn't just give her the wood. He also fixed her car. He fixed her roof. He fixed her heating and AC unit. He did it all for free. And then he raised $20,000 for her for Christmas. God bless this man. God bless this man. This is such a wonderful story. Man. Oh, I'm sure they're going to. I mean, he cut it up so small. Even if they don't stack it for, but hopefully they did. Hopefully they did. Anyways, God bless this man. So amazing that he was there to bless her in that way. All right, now let's talk about Eric Swalwell. All right, now there's a couple of other controversies that we haven't talked about before. Now, everybody knows about Fang Fang. Everybody knows about the Chinese intelligence honeypot operation that Eric Swalwell got embroiled in. We know he got removed from the House Intel Committee because there were national security concerns because he could be compromised in the way that he was. We know about when he farted on Hardball with Chris Matthews. Tell you what, I think they actually have a link to this. This is one of my favorite moments. Let's go ahead and listen to Eric Swalwell. Oh, no, shoot. Hold on.
Who were on the phone listening to the president talk about this swap of dirt for U.S. military aid.
Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from Republicans all last week was that you don't have anyone who heard the call.
I swear to God, when I first heard that years ago, I think it was like 2019, when I first heard that, I thought that it was a joke. I thought somebody must have layered that in. I was like, brilliant, perfect. But it's
the complaint that I've heard from Republicans all last week was that you don't have anyone who heard the call. Contradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And
but he pauses. He's like, cheat an election. Oh, my God. He was like, they won't hear this on the mic. He thought I could slip this one out, and it obviously did not go the way that he thought it would. All right, so Eric Swalwell has some questionable judgment. That is obvious. We also know his personal life is a mess. All right. Not only did he get divorced because he fell for a Chinese honeypot, his marriage, his divorce itself, it was like a soap opera. He is in dire straits financially. He's cashed in his retirement. He hasn't paid off his student loans. He is clearly a resident of Washington, D.C., which means he's unqualified to be a representative for California. He also doesn't meet the residency requirements to be the governor of California. He's now looking at a mortgage fraud case, which I am certain they are going to get. And he has filed a civil lawsuit against Bill Pulte, claiming that this publicly available mortgage information was private, even though anybody can go to mytax.dc.gov and they can find Eric Swalwell's mortgage information. But listen to this. So Reuters was attempting to write an article debunking or basically throwing shade at the story about Eric Swalwell. Christine Prentice is the woman who wrote the story, and she writes an email to Joel Gilbert, one of the men who he's actually been a guest on the show before. Him and Sam Antar are the ones who did this deep dive investigation into all of these Democrat criminals. She said, sent him an email, and she said, I'm working with Reuters on a story about the FHFA director's referral of mortgage fraud allegations. We are seeking your comment. Well, Joel Gilbert's no dummy. He knows that if he gives them a comment, they're going to probably misquote him. They're going to twist his words. So he simply responded and said, hi, Chris. I'm happy to see more coverage of Swalwell's residency problems. Read my Eric Swalwell articles linked below. And he just sent her everything that he had previously written about Swalwell. So the next day, Reuters did exactly what Joel expected them to do. They didn't write an article about Eric Swalwell and his residency problems. It was a hit piece on Bill Pulte. So she had essentially written, ethics experts have criticized Pulte's tactics in seeking to target individuals for mortgage misstatements, historically rare prosecutions. This is obviously not a misstatement. And then she quoted Joel Gilbert and said that he is happy to see more coverage of the issue, which, of course, the insinuation, and this is very important, the insinuation is that Joel Gilbert is, he's excited to see more coverage of the issue. What about Bill Pulte? No, he's excited to see issue about Eric Swalwell's residency being covered. So he writes in a letter to the people at Reuters, and he requests a retraction. This is their Ethics and Standards Bureau. And he said, "Dear Mr. Gilbert, your email to Chris Prentice and Marissa Taylor was forwarded to me, an Ethics and Standards editor at Reuters. Thank you for writing and sharing your concerns regarding their exclusive story published today. We have reviewed the article closely in light of them. After our review, the article was corrected to reflect more clearly the context of your comment in the story. Reuters takes seriously its commitment to the trust principles, which require us to supply reliable news that is accurate, fair, and free from bias." Total BS, obviously. So what did they do? They updated their article to say that what Joel Gilbert actually said. I am happy to see more coverage of Swalwell's residency problems. Completely changes the tone and tenor of the statement. It is right in online with what the fake news media does all the time. So Eric Swalwell is not a resident of California. If you look at his candidate disclosure, his Form 501, he signed it under penalty of perjury. He listed his home address as 400 Capitol Mall Suite 2400 in Sacramento, California. This, again, is his office, the office for his lawyer, Greenberg Toreg, LLP. It is not appropriate for campaign filings. It is not appropriate for residency. But if he did it as simply a campaign filing, like where he had the headquarters of his campaign or something like that, you could totally do that, and that would be fine. But to use it as your personal residence when it's in the middle of a strip mall, that is potentially criminal. So Joel Gilbert called Swalwell's congressional office in Washington, D.C., and asked for his California home address. He was placed on hold, and he was instructed to email the communications director, Cassie Ballou. Cassie Ballou is maybe somebody else who Eric Swalwell has had some fun with in the past. She is former Miss District of Columbia 2023. She's a real looker. So he emailed Ballou, and Ballou did not comment. So then he did a search of Alameda County property records, and there is no property that has ever been owned by Eric Swalwell, either before today's date or on today's date. Now, if Eric Swalwell is going to be governor of the state of California, I don't see how he overcomes this, and I don't see how he's going to be successful. Eric Swalwell has attempted to run outside of his district in the past. If you'll remember, he ran for president several years ago. He dropped out pretty quickly because nobody cared. Nobody showed up to his events. Nobody voted for him. And there is no reconciliation of Eric Swalwell's publicly available statements in terms of his address and his residency. He has been confronted about this in the past, and his justification in his lawsuit against Bill Pulte doesn't make any sense either, because he stated that there was an affidavit. Well, there was no affidavit. There is nothing in there which can indicate that Eric Swalwell did anything other than lie. So I hope very soon we're going to see a criminal referral for Eric Swalwell, and we'll get better than the Letitia James treatment for him. All right. Now, speaking of corrupt members of Congress, this is a clip from Larry Johnson. Now, Larry is a former CIA officer, but most of the time he appears to have some pretty good takes. Apparently, he was able to recover or review bank records of Senator Lindsey Graham, which show that he is 100% directly receiving money from the Ukraine war. It's being laundered back into his personal bank accounts. Take a listen.
And let me say something about Senator Graham. There will be news coming out in the next couple of months about how he has profited financially off of money that came out through Latvia and made it way into his bank account. And we're talking significant amounts of money. Department of Justice is looking at it.
All right, those are serious allegations leveled by CIA officer, former CIA officer Larry Johnson. We shall see.
And let me say something.
It's one thing to make the claim that Senator Lindsey Graham is profiting off of the Ukraine war. I think everybody kind of expects that to be the case. It's another thing for Larry Johnson to drop that the DOJ is currently investigating Lindsey Graham for the money that was laundered out of Ukraine into his personal bank accounts. So this, my friends, is a story that we are going to be following very closely from here on out. Now, we also have charges coming out of the state of California. Federal prosecutors have charged a longtime California welfare worker. They were carrying out a multi-year fraud scheme involving food assistance benefits and dead people. This is one of those cases of people that have been scamming the SNAP program. So the U.S. Department of Justice announced the arrest of former Madera County benefits eligibility worker Leticia Mariscal, 55, of Madera. Prosecutors found that Mariscal stole tens of thousands of dollars in CalFresh benefits by exploiting her access to company databases. CalFresh is California's version of the SNAP program. Now, according to the Justice Department, the alleged scheme took place between December 2020 and April of 2025, so nearly 5 years of scamming. Mariscal is accused of improperly accessing personal identifying information for elderly and deceased individuals. Authorities say she would then secretly approve those individuals for CalFresh benefits, and she would then print EBT cards in their name. Benefits were then deposited onto the cards, and they were spent, of course, by Miss Mariscal herself. Federal authorities say more than 15 different identities were used in the scheme, and the total amount that was allegedly stolen is minimum $40,000. The case reportedly came to light after the son of a 91-year-old woman who was living in a nursing home questioned why his mother was receiving food assistance. So investigators then confronted Mariscal with security footage, and she allegedly admitted that she was doing what they thought she was doing. Prosecutors said she attempted to shift blame to a former boyfriend, as she had described as a gang member. She allegedly claimed she carried out the fraud because she was afraid for her own safety. The investigation was conducted by the FBI with assistance from the Madera County District's Attorney's Office, and if she is convicted, Mariscal faces up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine, not to mention she'll probably be asked to pay back the $40,000 plus that she stole from the SNAP program. How many more individuals are doing scams just like this, working inside these social service offices? This is very reminiscent of what LA County employees were doing with the COVID funds. They were pretending they were out of work. They were going to work. They were getting all of this extra money from unemployment, and they were caught, and they are now being brought up on charges. Now, thank you to Sean Joe for the can and the cookie. No thanks, Joe says, hope you guys had a great weekend, Lisa and Zach. I want to wish you both the most heartwarming thank you and the best of wishes for a tremendous Merry Christmas. God bless and stay safe. Please. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Merry Christmas to you as well. Also, thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. Thank you, brother. All right, now, we're going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. This has been kind of a shitstorm that has been blazing since last week when the Epstein files began to be revealed as part of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Now, a lot of pictures coming out, most of them kind of, no big deal, stuff we've seen before. I've seen Ghislaine Maxwell's boobs in this picture before. I've seen her standing in front of 10 Downing Street. Of course, we know that there was a British prime minister that was very cozy with Jeffrey Epstein. I am assuming it was Tony Blair. I've seen this picture of these two lovebirds kissing on the street before. But so far, roughly 300,000 documents have been released as part of this Epstein Files document drop. And everybody around the world is going through the files. They're looking to see if they can get some new stories. Nothing really of substance. A couple of interesting pieces we're going to talk about. But one of the most obvious features is that Ghislaine Maxwell features prominently. Jeffrey Epstein and her father were very close. And Robert Maxwell is somebody who has, for many years, known to be a covert Mossad agent, also working with MI6. It's thought that he faked his own death when he fell off of the yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named after his daughter. His body was never found, and he probably died in the lap of luxury living in Israel. Now, he had, of course, ripped off the pension fund of his employees at his company. But we can see through these pictures throughout the years, they have a series of romantic moments where they're traveling around the world, hanging out with little girls, and also people in positions of power and privilege. Now, the initial pictures are not so controversial. We've got them kissing in front of this building in Europe. And they continue on from there. Here is a picture that I had not seen before. This is Ghislaine Maxwell flashing her fanny, shall we say, if anybody out there knows British terminology. She's inside a supercar and she's flashing her fanny for whoever is taking this picture here because she has aged out of Jeffrey Epstein's preferences. She's still hanging around, but she's not necessarily on Jeffrey Epstein's list of people that he wants to get massages from anymore. This is them with Prince Andrew in a photograph I don't think I've seen before. Again, here she is at 10 Downing Street outside the Prime Minister's office. Here in a photograph that was making the rounds last week, it's Ghislaine Maxwell, Bill Clinton, and a young woman of some type. Now, the DOJ said that they were only redacting things as required by law, which is going to include, of course, victims, and that could include men or women, people who were perhaps blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein or girls that were used as tools of blackmail. But Bill Clinton features prominently. What's funny is that Bill Clinton came out after all of these new pictures came out over the weekend, and he said, this story isn't about Bill Clinton. It's about Donald Trump. Release all of the Epstein files now. I want to see everything. I want to see everything, after years of saying that he basically was not even close to Jeffrey Epstein. Here is Ghislaine Maxwell flying a helicopter. Here she is flashing her tatas on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, the Lolita Express. I believe this is Jeffrey Epstein's foot. She was giving him a foot massage in another photograph from right here. There's also some pictures of Jeffrey Epstein with Michael Jackson. These photographs were not taken in Jeffrey Epstein's home. This was actually backstage at another event. Jeffrey Epstein showed up someplace. So Michael Jackson was not hanging around Jeffrey Epstein and doing things with children. Here's another interesting one. Earlier this year, we got a new picture of Jeffrey Epstein wearing his IDF, Israeli Defense Forces sweatshirt. Now, this is a picture of that IDF sweatshirt in his closet. Jeffrey Epstein did not serve in the IDF, but many people have assumed that Jeffrey Epstein was, in fact, a working for Mossad or working for the Israeli government in one form or another. So moving on from that, we also have this statement from the Epstein survivors. Now, one of the things that people were very upset about over the weekend is the redactions that were present in the DOJ files. Now, much like the first release that they had put out, there were some documents that were already released in one form or another that were unredacted, and then this time, some of them were redacted. There were also pictures of people which seem to be men that are redacted. We don't know who those people are, but again, if they are a victim, the DOJ said that they were redacting them. But there's another very important reason why they might be redacted, and I touched on it on Friday, but if you didn't join us on OnlyLands, I will repeat myself. This is the letter from the survivors. The Epstein Files Transparency Act imposed a December 19th deadline for the U.S. Department of Justice to release its full records of the investigation of Epstein and his accomplices and enablers, with specific narrow exceptions, such as survivor identities. This law, enacted by a nearly unanimous vote in the House and unanimously in the Senate and signed by the president, was clear. It afforded no permission for delayed disclosure. Instead, the public received a fraction of the files, and what we received was riddled with abnormal and extreme redactions with no explanation. At the same time, numerous victim identities were left unredacted, causing real and immediate harm. No financial documents were released. Grand jury minutes, though approved by a federal judge for release, were fully blacked out. Not the scattered redactions that might be expected to protect victim names, but 119 full pages blacked out. We are told that there are hundreds of thousands of pages of documents still unreleased. And as I said, nearly 300,000 that have been released thus far. These are clear-cut violations of an unambiguous law. Moreover, the partial release was done in a manner that made it difficult or impossible for survivors to find materials that would be most relevant to our search for accountability. There has been no guidance for survivors on how to locate materials pertaining to our own cases. There has been no communication with survivors or our representatives as to what was withheld from the case or why hundreds of thousands of documents have not been disclosed by the legal deadline, or how the DOJ will ensure that no more victim names are wrongly disclosed. While clearer communication would not change the fact that the law was broken, its absence suggests an ongoing intent to keep survivors and the public in the dark as much as possible and as long as possible. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. However, the intention of this law does appear to have been attempted in the release of this information. However, it does also appear that it could have been done in perhaps a slightly better way. However, they mention the way that things are formulated in terms of how it's you can't basically search for anything. However, there is also, this is not it. This is something that was the new PSYOPs document. There was a user on X that had shared his own browser website so that you can see all of the pictures in the Epstein file release. There's 4,101 pictures. And when you go to this website, you can see them before you click on them so that you can see what's actually in there. This is pretty interesting and useful. Again, a lot of this stuff will have been seen before. Some of it, plenty of it, will also not have been seen before. So certainly an interesting tool, and I'm very happy that somebody was able to put this together. But getting back to the statement from the victims, it is alarming that the Department of Justice, the very agency tasked with upholding the law, has violated the law, both by withholding massive quantities of documents and by failing to redact survivor identities. As women who survived the crimes perpetrated by Epstein and Maxwell, we call upon the DOJ to explain to the public why they have missed a legal deadline and to explain to us or our representatives how we can privately obtain copies of all documents in DOJ possession that identify us by name. For documents that are publicly released, careful, lawful redaction is essential. Transparency must focus on institutional failures, enablers, financial records, and government conduct, not on further endangering survivors. I agree with that. Moreover, we call on Congress to stand up for the rule of law. We urge immediate congressional oversight, including hearings, formal demands for compliance, and legal action to ensure the Department of Justice fulfills its legal obligations. This is not a partisan issue. Just as the Epstein Files Transparency Act was supported across party lines, we now ask elected officials from both parties to take decisive action to ensure the law, compel full compliance, and ensure meaningful transparency without further delay. Survivors deserve the truth. Survivors whose identities are private deserve protection. The public deserves accountability, and the law must be enforced. Now, I personally have not seen the name of any survivors that have been revealed that had previously wanted to remain redacted. So I don't know who they're talking about. I haven't seen it reported anywhere. It must have been something that one of the survivors found on their own. But this user right here points out some fairly interesting points in terms of why we may be seeing what we are. And I actually said this on Friday. It's very likely, because it's already being reported, that the survivors have been working with the DOJ to identify their abusers. And if those abusers and the testimony also line up with evidence that would be in these files, well, that's an ongoing case, and the DOJ can't disclose that because they don't want to poison the jury pool. So valid redactions under the EFTA, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, extend far beyond victims' names to include all personally identifiable information. That is a fact that's actually in the law. Number two, even if perpetrators were extorted or blackmailed, they are both perpetrators and victims. So it is therefore reasonable to believe that their names could receive the same redaction protections as other victims. That is definitely true as well. Grand jury proceedings are part of an investigation. under the EFTA's permissible redactions, including for active investigations, which they do note, grand jury pages can arguably be redacted if their entirety as grand jury statements. The entire page inherits the attribute of being part of an active investigation. So the stuff that you're seeing redacted from the grand jury documents that have been revealed, which are statements of testimony by survivors, very likely implicate some of the men who have been the perpetrators of the same types of alleged acts that Epstein and Maxwell were both known to have committed. So that would explain why you would see that grand jury information being redacted. Survivors and victims should have access to their own materials. If communication lacked clarity, it's hard to see criminal intent or breach of duty by the FBI. I tend to see it more likely as an overwhelming amount of documents and perhaps a limited number of people to go through it. If you've ever had to redact either a video or a large stack of documents, it is easy to let something slip through because at a certain point, your eyes just kind of start to glaze over. Much speculation exists about the DOJ's intentions or law breaking. It's uncertain every redaction was unlawful or outside the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The only potential evidence of excess is the higher than expected redaction volume. However, since it covers PII, personal identifying information, including descriptions or persons or places, other categories, and it's only about 4 to 7.5% redacted. This raises suspicion, but not probable cause of unlawful redactions with criminal intent. Certainly, I think the DOJ should answer for the redactions that they've made. Now, we do have a couple of comments from members of Congress, namely Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Now, when this was released on Friday, Ro Khanna came right out and said that he and Thomas Massie were looking to bring articles of impeachment against Pam Bondi over the Epstein release. Now, everybody knows in order to successfully impeach the attorney general, just like the president, you have to have an overwhelming number of votes if you plan to impeach and then also convict in the Senate. That appears to have been decided to be impossible by Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie. So we will leave that for now because I don't think that's going to happen. But Todd Blanche came out over the weekend and spoke about the Democrats who are complaining that the Department of Justice has not fulfilled its duty in the release of this information. So they put out this tweet. Here is the document now with minimal redactions, photos, and will continue to be reviewed consistent with the law with an abundance of caution to victims and families. So this is that original 119-page grand jury document that was entirely redacted. The government, I guess, didn't notice at first. Perhaps it was just because the documents were so many. They took it back. They produced it in a form that only covers the things that it was supposed to cover. And so they very quickly responded and made good on whatever complaint people had. And as I said, Todd Blanche came out and did his own little press tour to speak with people about it. Now here, someone says, the oversight Dems say this photo, file 468 from the Epstein files that includes Donald Trump, has apparently now been removed from the DOJ release. Is this true? What is being covered up? So the DOJ responded to this, and they said that there was a concern that a person in this photograph. Now, there is one tiny picture of Donald Trump, which is already being released. That wasn't going to be pulled because it had Donald Trump in there. We've already seen this picture in a number of different forms. The concern was that someone somewhere in this photograph was a victim, and so the DOJ pulled it out of an abundance of caution and then checked it to make sure that it didn't need to be redacted, and then re-added it to the tranche of documents that had already been released. Now, let's hear from Todd Blanche as he addresses some of these concerns.
Epstein Files Transparency Act prohibits redactions, quote, on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. Has anything been redacted on that basis?
Absolutely, positively not. And that's another trend that is just simply false. There were a number of photographs that were pulled down after being released on Friday. That's because a judge in New York has ordered us to listen to any victim or victim rights group if they have any concerns about the material that we're putting up. And so when we...
So that is a very, very important factor to mention. If they release something and someone complains to the Justice Department about something that's being released, they have the responsibility to immediately pull it back, check it, and make sure that they are not violating not only that person's rights, but also not violating the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
Hear concerns, whether it's photographs of women that we do not believe are victims or we didn't have information to show that they were victims, but we learned that there are concerns. Of course, we're taking that photograph down and we're going to address it. If we need to redact faces or other information, we will, and then we'll put it back up. So we are in every way, shape, and form complying with the statute, which, by the way, is what President Trump has been asking us to do since before he was elected. There is nothing that he has to hide in the Epstein files. There never was. And even though there's repeated attempts by Democrats to paint him as being part of the Epstein saga, it's failing over and over again. And so you should not be surprised that the material that we released on Friday or the material that we're going to release over the next couple of weeks is exactly what the statute requires us to release, which is everything that we have from this case, with the exception of redacting personal information from victims and other statutes, privileges and things like that. Otherwise, everything's getting pretty.
All right, so I feel like this is a good faith attempt to get this information out there and to ensure that the nation is getting exactly what President Trump had demanded and what the people have demanded and what President Trump had demanded. Now, here is Todd Blanche specifically commenting on the threat to impeach Pam Bondi. Again, I think that this is going to be abandoned. I don't believe that they would be successful if they tried to do so. It would merely be a political, ceremonial thing that they might do.
Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna, the authors of the Epstein bill, say the partial release of files failed to comply with the law. They say they are considering looking into the possibility of impeachment proceedings, contempt, even criminal referrals for obstruction of justice for DOJ officials. Do you take these threats seriously?
Not even a little bit. Bring it on. We are doing everything we're supposed to be doing to comply with this statute. And Congressman Massey and these other congressmen that are coming out speaking negatively about Director Patel and the Attorney General have no idea what they're talking about. They know the work that we're going through. They know what we're doing to protect victims. I mean, just think about what we're doing. You're talking about 1 million or so pages of documents. Virtually all of them contain victim information. So, listen, the idea that Attorney General Bondi would ever let a single piece of paper go out of this department that contains victim information is something they know we won't do. And the fact that they're threatening to impeach her for protecting victims is a reflection of where their head's at. It's not a reflection of this department. We are complying with the statute. We will continue to comply with the statute. And if by complying with the statute, we don't produce everything on Friday, we produce things next week and the week after, that's still compliance with the statute. There is well-settled law.
All right. Now, they have changed their tactic, and they are instead going to use a tactic that actually I had advocated for Congress to use during January 6th investigations, during the investigation into election fraud. They are now talking about bringing inherent contempt charges against Pam Bondi over the Epstein files. They say we are building a bipartisan coalition. Now, this is a circumvention of the Department of Justice. I find it kind of funny that they're going to do it over this, and they didn't seriously consider it when we could have used this as a tactic quite a long time ago. So basically, this is a power that Congress has. It uses the House or Senate sergeant at arms or the deputy to arrest a person, take them into custody for proceedings to be held in Congress. Now, I think it's been used before, but it was used a long time ago, and it would basically be like Congress prosecuting Pam Bondi. Now, to explain how this would work, it's not a federal charge, it's a procedural charge. There is nothing that President Trump could do to stop Congress from doing this if they successfully bring a coalition together to bring these inherent contempt charges against Pam Bondi. So there's no pardon, nothing like that. It would be either the House or the Senate that could charge the inherent contempt by itself. There is no need for both the House and the Senate to do it. The sergeant at arms of the House or the Senate that brought these inherent contempt charges would then come to arrest Pam Bondi and hold her in contempt and bring them before the House or the Senate before the House for the trial. The sergeant at arms would arrest her. Failure to resolve means that they would then be held in Congress. Perjury in this session would be its own new crime outside of anything else they're accusing her of. If President Trump pardoned perjury or covered this up in some fashion, then Pam Bondi would lose her Fifth Amendment protections related to those crimes, and she could literally be compelled to testify. And if President Trump did attempt to pardon Pam Bondi, that would be a pardon of ill intent. And if she accepted it, it would create a new crime of blackmail and conspiracy as part of a cover-up, and it would create a liability for Pam Bondi and the president, and it would no longer be considered an official act. And contempt is a continual crime. So if the pardon was given and it forgave a prior contempt, Pam Bondi would still be in contempt afterwards, and it would be a new crime that would not be protected by the pardon. This is a fairly broad-reaching action that Congress could take, and they should have done this shit a long time ago for something that really mattered. I feel like this is a total waste of time. And the longer that Tom Massey stays in Congress, the less and less I like him. I feel like there are so many other worthwhile things that Congress could use their power for, and they just don't. They're completely worthless. It's a bunch of political grandstanding. It's a bunch of self-dealing. It's a bunch of political quid pro quos. Why don't they file inherent contempt charges against Bill and Hillary Clinton or against any of the other criminals of the deep state? Go get them, bring them in. Generally speaking, they could force them to testify. But in this instance, they seem dead set on destroying Pam Bondi. I think that it's all political theater and it's total bullshit. All right, you guys, before we conclude for the night, I have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble. All right, if you or someone you know struggles with blood sugar and A1C, you need to hear this message. It's well known that the expensive medications and popular shots that people are taking all across America have dangerous side effects. Well, Creator's Bounty has developed the perfect alternative. It's an herbal supplement. It's called Elohe Trim, and Elohe Trim is a 100% natural formula that's proven to dramatically lower your blood sugar and A1C. It uses 7 healthy ingredients, no stimulants, there's no junk. These 7 ingredients, if you bought them separately, would cost you over $150. But the best part is, when they put it all together, there's no bad side effects, only good ones. We're talking sugar cravings gone, inflammation reduced, stable energy all day with 0 crashes. Most people are getting better results than they did on those harsh medications, but they are not getting the risks. Elohe Trim is made in the USA at an FDA-registered facility. It's fully tested, and it's backed by a no-questions-asked 90-day money-back guarantee. The friendly folks at Creator's Bounty offer fast and free shipping 5 days a week from Oklahoma. So head on over to creatorsbounty.com/rumble and take advantage of this special offer today, and you can get up to 50% off. Thank you very much to them, and thank you very much to Rumble. All right, so final thank yous. Sabrado says, I'm sorry. First of all, American Patriot 1776 says, my mom got me a plasma ball for Christmas. Oh, that's awesome. I tagged you on X with a short video of it. Merry Christmas to you and Lisa. Okay, I'll go check it out after the show. And then Sabrado says, great show. Merry Christmas to you and Lisa. Thank you for all you guys do. This community appreciates it. You really have the best news show. Looking forward to the new year. It's getting fun. And Sabrado donated over on Cash App and said, Merry Christmas over there as well. Thank you so much, Sabrina. I really appreciate you. Thank you for the support on the program. And then thank you to Sean Joe for that final cookie over there. All right, you guys. And don't forget about the final sponsors of the program, my friends over there at onenessdrops.com/BOGO Red Pill 78. You'll get a buy one, get one free on everything on the website. the chlorine dioxide, the mullein, the soursop, the DMSO, the HCl. You can also get their bundles, which are already discounted to a lower price, and you can get a buy one, get one free of them as well. My friends over at mypillow.com, use the code RP78. You can help support Mike Lindell's run for governor of Minnesota. And of course, you will also support an American business that is supporting this podcast. Use that code RP78 to get up to 80% off. They have a whole bunch of specials still for Christmas right now. And of course, my friend Jordan over at consciousstrength.net. Use code RP78 there to save 10% off of everything they offer. This is where I get my methylene blue. They also have the Shilajit gummies, which I use as well. The green energy and the electrolytes are also something we use. Iodine, very, very important. I've tried these focus dips a couple of times. Those are great. I also put the curcumin in the dog's food, which, of course, is a formula which is good for skin and coat health and for their joints. And then finally, my friends over at My Patriot Supply, prepare with redpill78.com. Survival food, solar generators, water filters, everything you need to prep for the apocalypse, which, of course, hope is never going to come. All right, you guys, join me tonight at 10:30 on Badlands Media for the conclusion of our series that we've been doing the last couple of weeks on baseless conspiracies. But if I don't see you tonight, I hope to see you right here tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Let me pass out these gold pills unpilled. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I will be here until Christmas Eve. I think Christmas Eve, Christmas, and, well, I'll let you know what the show is going to look like. We have family that's coming into town, and I want to make sure that we all get a chance to hang out. So, okay, I passed out the gold pills. I'm going to see who is live. I'll send you guys over to Space Shot. How's that? You guys ready for some Space Shot? Let me go to Space Shot 76. That's my boy Mike right there. Say hello to Space Shot for me when you get over there. And make sure you tell him Merry Christmas /raid. All right. Good luck. God bless. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.